This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation. Just when you thought it was safe to listen to a podcast, here we are. We're back. We have a brand new show here on the Place to Be Nation Pop Feed. It is called Blockbuster Rewind. I am one of your co-hosts, Andy Atherton. Yes, you've heard me on many shows. You're in Pop, Great Debate, Laugh in Theater. Lots of fun stuff I like to do here. But I want to expand a little bit. I want to talk about some different things. And I want to bring in some new voices. And I think I've gotten two pretty damn good ones to round out the trio we're going to have on this brand new series, which is called Blockbuster Rewind. First off, let me bring him in. You've heard him on a bunch of shows here and there. He's been on Great Debate. He has been on other wrestling shows on various feeds. Mr. Scott Shifflett. Scott, how are you tonight?
Doing great, Andy. Looking forward to discussing Jaws and looking forward to getting into the Blockbuster movies because I am a huge movie buff. I have an AMC movie pass and saw over 40 movies in the theaters last year, so this is right up my alley.
I am quite jealous of you having the AMC movie pass because, I don't have AMC theaters near me. I did the movie pass. What was it called? That was it called? It was called movie pass.
Yeah, just movie pass.
Yeah, and I had that, and I used it quite a lot, and then it kind of shit the bed. And then we tried Cinemia, and that only worked for a short time until that crapped the bed. So, like I said, very jealous. So, also joining us tonight, and every episode, the third member of the co-host, he has just started podcasting. He's actually, I believe, only been on one podcast so far, which was a group watch of Ready to Rumble on Laugh in Theater. Mr. Eric Eells. Eric, how you doing, man?
Hi, Andy. It's certainly great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk about movies and to certainly talk about this very exciting series.
That's right. Off. It is. It is a great one. So we're going to kind of like set the stage, though, for what the listeners can expect on this brand new series. Basically, there are a lot of great podcasts here on In Place to Be Nation, as well as on our associate feeds. That is the Jenny Position and North-South Connection. But, there's really, not a lot of discussion pods. They do a really good one, which we'll introduce him in a minute. Our guest is part of over on the Jenny Position called The Journey Through Infinity, where they kind of run through the whole MCU in order. And I got a little inspired, some might say jealous, of I like that show. I like that format. And I really love my favorite personal. I love comedies. I obviously have a comedy podcast, but I love blockbusters. I love popcorn movies, just tent poles. Just give me big spectacle in a movie theater, and I'm there. Sometimes it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It just has to be in the theater. And I thought, let me find a couple of guys, and through chats and discussions, I reached out to Scott and Eric and thought these are guys that I really want to have conversations with about movies, especially these kind of movies, because we don't talk about a lot of it. Yeah, we've had some great Pop Goes the Classic series by Mr. Criscolo and myself. We're doing little offshoots. We have Disney, we have James Bond, we're going to have Star Trek coming soon. But here, we want a chance to talk about movies like Jaws, like maybe Jurassic Park, we'll get back to Star Wars. We've done a lot of Star Wars within the last year or so. And, Harry Potter, maybe get some more Marvel talk here. Who knows? But it's wide open. Every episode we're gonna pick a movie or a genre and kind of talk about them, whether they're part of a franchise or standalones, and just have a lot of fun. Scott, what are you looking forward to on this series?
I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone thinks about these movies because there's some that I hold in high regard, like the Harry Potter movies that I know other people may not like, and just being able to catch up because I had only seen Jaws 1 before this, and we'll get to this later, but I had never seen 2, 3, and I didn't even hear a 4 until we were talking about it in our chat a couple weeks ago. I discovered that 4 existed. I thought Sousa was joking around when he was talking about the plot points of the movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing this and broaden my horizons with movies I might have missed because I wasn't born yet or I just never got around to seeing.
All right. Eric, what about you? What are your feelings about movie? What's your general movie taste, and what are you looking for this series?
I guess my general movie taste, I guess it goes toward a lot of well, it's certainly changed over the years. I would say it was a lot more early on, like more off the side, like just any kind of comedy that's out there. And definitely horror was a big part of my childhood, and some action. But certainly shift changes. Certainly, I got in my 20s, certainly a lot more dramas, a lot more character pieces. And now it's just it's sort of come back around. Certainly, when you pitch the idea of doing franchises and I guess tentpole movies, so there's a lot of different stuff that popped in my mind. Potentially talking about, I guess what specifically when we get to a tentpole movie, I guess what you would define it as a tentpole, personally.
Yeah, anything that has, this is a tentpole. Really is like a studio planting their flag, like this is our big movie. We dare you to come out against it, kind of thing. And it could be a horror movie. We could talk about it. We could talk about Halloween. Anything. There are horror movies that fall under the blockbuster. It doesn't have to be a big CGI or creature feature or space odyssey to be considered a blockbuster or a popcorn movie. So,
oh yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, like the Saw.
What was that?
Yeah, like the Saw movies. When I was in high school and college, you knew Halloween weekend, Saw movies were coming out.
Oh,
dropped
for sure.
in quality greatly, but I saw the first 4 in theaters. So, and I always knew around Halloween you were going to see it.
Yeah.
And then from the Saw movies came the Paranormal Activity movies, which, if we ever talk about that, I'll explain how the first one scared the shit out of me. But
so
yeah,
we have a pretty wide array of movies to pick from and franchise, stuff like that. So that's what's so great. I think that's going to be great about this series is we're going to talk about lots of different things that we don't get to talk about on a lot of shows. Like, yes, I've talked about Jaws on Year and Pop, but that was a very small segment. It wasn't a deep dive. I'm going to talk about other blockbusters on that show. Laugh in Theater, I get to talk about comedies. Maddie, we got a piece of the action now, but this is like a chance for us to really get in, and we're going to bring in someone we think is either a super fan or something they always want to talk about, and get them involved in our conversation. So, let's get our guest in for our first episode. So tonight we are talking about Jaws and its franchise, as we've made mention to. So that includes the original from 1976 or 75. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And then we have Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, and Jaws Revenge. And one man we thought of to come and talk about all those great movies, Mr. Tim Capel. Tim, how are you tonight?
Oh my goodness, you guys. Talk about flagpoles. Talk about tent poles. I'm over here pitching a tent because of the opportunity you guys have given me to officially, legitimately talk about Jaws, more specifically Jaws the Revenge. We'll get to that, but I think it's a movie that I have sort of stealth talked about on a lot of past podcasts that had nothing whatsoever to do with Jaws, to great effect on the live watch that Jennifer Smith and I did of My Father the Hero on our program Talkin' Pop. That was, last year, 2 years ago, who knows at this point, but you can find that on the Jenny position. We sort of, fantasy rebooked that movie as a Jaws the Revenge sequel, actually. Don't ask me how that worked, but I think it really spoke for itself on that podcast. But that's one of the many, many places you can find me talking about Jaws on podcasts that aren't about Jaws. But this one is, and I was so glad to be here. Andy, I am really happy that jealousy breeds inspiration and creativity sometimes. I didn't know that's how it came about, but that's pretty awesome, man. And to talk to Eric and Scott for the first time, not for the first time, but on a podcast, an official podcast that will be released to the world, is pretty special to me. So thank you so very much.
That's great. And also, actually, Scott's kind of our Justin tonight because he just watched 3 out of the 4 movies.
Which I didn't know,
So he's fresh. So it's almost like you're on Journey Through Amity. maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know. We'll call it tonight.
We're going to run the series. Yeah.
There you go.
Love
it. Shout out to Jenny, though, and you and Scott and Justin. That is a great podcast. I look forward to every episode because, one, I love you guys on a personal level, but, it is a tremendous show where you guys talk about every episode. And it's not typical. It's not, just talking about it's you have so many different perspectives, and it's, you're a deep comics guy. Jenny's, somewhat comics, but a big movie fan. Scott, comics and that, and Justin is fresh, just having seen him. So that's what we're trying to do here. Like I said, jealousy, whatever you want to call it, admiration breeds, imitation or whatever we'll call it. But, we're going to do our own little version, and maybe we'll talk about the Marvel movies at some point on this. Who knows? But tonight...
Yeah, they're blockbusters in their own right.
They are great. And we have, there's at least like 5 or 6 episodes we could do alone on a podcast. But we're here to talk about...
Well, it's appropriate to start at the beginning,
yes,
right?
Yes. Widely considered the first Hollywood blockbuster. Released June 20th, 1975. So I am the only one on the show tonight that was alive when this movie came out. I don't believe I saw it in theaters. Had I seen it in theaters, my parents probably would have gotten in trouble or dirty looks. Because I give people dirty looks when I see young kids in movies that they shouldn't be in, like the people that brought their 4-year-old to see It Chapter 2 last year.
Yeah, it depends on how alive you were in 1975, I guess.
But
right.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, the difference was between that and It Chapter 2 is this was still in the days of just a PG rating. There was not a stopgap as there would eventually be with PG-13. So it's it could be a wide open area of interpretation of what the movie is and how violent it could be, how much you get away with. So yeah, taking a child to a movie like this in 1975, it seems more common.
Well, yeah, because there were drive-ins also. I remember, going to those quite often, which our drive-ins are actually making a comeback thanks to COVID. So that may be one good thing that comes out of this. But I remember seeing the movie poster. I remember seeing the commercial. I remember being scared shitless, basically, of the water for a short amount of time because it was everywhere. It really was. I mean, and you look at the movie poster. Just the movie poster is terrifying because
I know.
The girl, Chrissy, is swimming, and you see this giant, literally, she could fit in, the dorsal fin of the shark. So,
but that poster is famous now.
Yeah.
You see it ripped off all the time in comics.
It's great. It's so simple and effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Jaws was really the precursor for a lot. You think of, we can, when we get to it with the music, with the dun dun. I mean, that's the precursor for the Halloween movies, for the Michael Myers, for the Jason.
And just right, the score and just to get back to the artwork, the film poster that's so iconic. It's such a perfect encapsulation of the movie itself too, because it's that lurking menace that you don't see. That's what's being depicted in that artwork. This swimmer who, totally unbeknownst to her, can't see what's just below the surface. Whatever's going to happen to her, it's all going to be unseen, basically. And that's what much of this movie is, and why it's so effective.
It preys on the fear of the unknown, and which is done to perfection. And we'll kind of talk about the movie in a minute in terms of just the story and all that. But this is thanks to sometimes thanks to my job, I get to work on programs about movies, and we had a series on what was formerly known as the Bio Channel called Inside Story. We covered lots of movies. We had Animal House, Caddyshack. I think we did a Nightmare on Elm Street series one, but one of the best ones we had was on Jaws. And it went through the whole thing on the whole production, how troubled it was, and how, basically Spielberg wouldn't have been Spielberg, basically, if it didn't work. And the fact that, it's very famous.
I might have just watched that, actually, on YouTube. I watched a pretty extensive documentary not too long ago.
With I think Richard Dreyfuss is featured a lot on it, and I think Daryl Zanuck Jr. was still alive. And they talked about the fact that they took a risk. It was the first movie filmed in the open ocean. And they didn't want to do it. Spielberg didn't want to do it in a tank. And the fact that the shark didn't work quite often
Right.
which led to the movie being better, I think. Had we seen the shark more, I mean, it is scary, and it doesn't look... There are some scenes where it looks really fake, but there are other scenes where it's still terrifying. It just from just the fin or whatever. He was forced to rely on more different storytelling techniques, not just show you this big giant shark to scare you, which led to, in my opinion, making it more terrifying. What do you guys think, Scott?
No, I agree, because as we'll discuss with each sequel, we saw more shark, and with more shark, shittier movie. So,
good point.
With seeing very little of shark in the first movie, you're always, like you said before, always on edge of like the unknown of what's going to happen. Like every time they went into the water in the first movie, I was like, this shark's going to destroy everything. But in the last movie, the shark only just goes for, if your last name's Brody, it's fine. But in the first movie, it's like, I'm going to kill this little kid. I'm going to kill this dog that's on a piece of driftwood. So, but before that, it's like, and the other one is like, oh, Brody. And then, the third one is basically Jaws versus Flipper. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about
that. Eric, what do you think of the storytelling techniques in the first one, at least?
Yeah, for sure the problems with the shark certainly in a way help production. I mean, this is certainly a work of very creative people, not just Spielberg, certainly him, but a lot of other creative people. Certainly the various writers, credited and uncredited, for crafting such memorable characters around, especially the three leads. And certainly building tension. I guess when this movie was released, like there's probably would have been a lot of comparisons to like Hitchcock of like building suspense, and certainly that score is a massive part of why. And like that, the score and good editing, both of which were very good and received Oscars. People consider them so good. Like this, the only Oscars it received was for its editing and for its soundtrack, which
were both incredible.
Yeah, incredible. And certainly this is the thing, I guess, you compare to sequels, is that you can get away with that once. Like, you can do a movie like this where you're building the suspense and the tension of when are you going to see it and how much you're going to see it. So once you get to the sequels, I guess the point is like not when you're going to see the shark, but how you use the shark, how you use it in the story.
Yep, exactly. Tim, what are your memories of the first time you saw this movie? Now, you probably have seen it on the HBO, or was this a VHS at your mom's growing up?
I think it was one of those situations where my aunt and my cousin, like when I spent a lot of time with them growing up, they had it in their house on VHS, but I couldn't tell you the first time I saw this entire movie, just because I think it was so early on, in my life where I may not have even had the concept of object permanence. It was just like always there, probably absorbed sort of through cultural osmosis. Like to me, like as a little kid thinking of like the concept of a shark, it was always just intrinsically linked with Jaws, I think. That's just how ingrained it is in my memory, in my experience. But certainly as an adult, like just gaining an appreciation for it as a film was a little bit later in life, probably in my 20s. It's a movie, and it's actually a film series that I kind of enjoy watching at the beach, oddly enough.
Oh, yeah, I know they do. They do, what do they call it? Dive-in movies, I think they're called them.
Yeah, dive-in, right. People on, like, a lake or something. I mean, I've never actually... It sounds fun. I've never actually done it myself, but anytime I'm on vacation and just watching, movies when you're not out enjoying the beach, I kind of go for stuff like this. So those are some fond memories I have. But yeah, it's just one of those movies that's grown with me throughout my life over time, and just seeing different layers to it. The older I get, like as a kid, you're just sort of into like all the cool shark attacks, type stuff, right? And then you get older and you sort of gravitate more to the actual characters and start to unpack them. And this leads to a question I had, and it might be a question that you are also planning to pitch to us, Andy. Has anyone read the novel that this is based on?
I have not. It's one of those things like between that and like Jurassic Park, because that's probably my favorite movie of all time. I'm dying to like sit down and do it. Just I don't have the attention span these days to sit and read something.
Yeah. I would say to anyone jump in if they have read it.
I have not.
Maybe don't go out of your way because it's. I don't want to say it's bad. It's not, but it's rather. I found it, and this is. I mean, I read it in the early 2000s, so this was some time ago. But I'm not like wanting to reread it or anything. It was kind of dry. Sort of unlikable characters. There's a lot of subplots that sort of substitute for actual characterization and depth, and you're just sort of like, if you've seen the movie first, you sort of, it might poison the well. I don't know. What do you think? What is all this crap? Like, I don't care about the mayor with his possible mob ties, and why do the Brodies have such an unhappy marriage, and she's having an affair with Hooper. It's really like, not what you expect. Yeah. There's a lot of changes.
As I recall, because I've been watching a lot of supplemental material, like including the infamous documentary, the shark is still not working, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe this was Pierre Bentley, the author. It's his first book.
Mm-hmm.
This is his first book. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. First book idea. Sometimes you're not going to hit it out of the park right away.
Sure.
But there was clearly there was an idea. There was the concept was enough. Like there was something that got people interested.
It like got optioned as a film like while he was still writing it. So there's like sort of all this hype around it, which is, it sounds weird to me for a 1974 novel, the film released in 75. Like that's pretty. That's a fast turnaround. I mean, that's a fast turnaround for today. For the 70s, it's kind of nuts to think.
Yeah. Amazingly, I've heard that story more than once about Stephen King. Like, certainly to a point once, like, he became established. Like, that was a thing that would happen. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see that happen with Carrie.
Yeah. God, what year was that? Was earlier 70s, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the book, Carrie? Good question. I know the film was like 76, so it's like right after this. A year after this. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, I guess
I didn't
more
know
to the point. The novel is very different from the film. Is the thrust of it.
Yeah. And certainly if you look at this movie poster as I'm looking right now, like it's promoted as like based off the #1 bestseller. So there was as part of the marketing, it was like you're appealing to those people who had already known the story, like who would have some anticipation.
Right. Yeah.
So, but certainly to the movie's benefit, like the characters are more well-rounded and certainly more likable, including Scumbum Mayor Larry Vaughn, who I like. I like to see more of. I would honestly I would read it just to read about his mob ties.
Yeah,
it's funny because it's like, in a way, it almost makes him more, I don't want to say sympathetic, but understandable, his position. Like, he has these mob ties, and there's all these allusions to the silent partner that he owes money to, and maybe that's really behind the decision of him insisting upon keeping the beaches open. Whereas in the movie, it's more like a cash grab tourism type thing, which I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but look at where we are today.
Yes,
it's a different characterization for him when you remove that maybe underlying motivation.
Yeah. All right, Scott, you were going to say something a little bit ago.
Yeah, I had no idea it was a book until I was watching the first movie, and it was like based on the novel. And then just because your phone listens to everything, I got a targeted ad towards me.
Oh, that's funny.
It was about the author of the book saying how he does shark rescue projects now.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still alive, but he did it for the rest of his life.
He's dead
so
now,
for
but
the
yeah.
damage he did to the sharks. Did the shark kill him? Because that would have been the hell of a way to go out.
Pretty sure he didn't get eaten by a shark, but he did feel quite guilty about, the overall frenzy that was created by the phenomenon of his novel and the subsequent film. People had a lot of misconceptions, of course, about shark behavior, and he had those same misconceptions in writing it, but come to learn, they aren't man-eaters. This isn't something that would ever really happen. And he became this, ocean conservationist, sort of. So he felt like he had to almost atone for this in some ways.
Yeah, he did. And it's a funny story. I believe Spielberg went on vacation after filming this with George Lucas, and I believe he wouldn't go in the water. he's like, they know. He's like, they know what I did, so I'm not giving them the opportunity. I don't know if it's an old wives' tale or a tale as skewl, but so talking about the movie. So basically, everybody knows the plot point. It's a killer shark terrorizes a resort town in New England, the fictional Amity, which actually was shot on location on Martha's Vineyard. Kind of, it centers around Chief Brody, who's afraid of the water and has to deal with the shark problem. A young scientist, a shark expert, Matt Hooper, comes to join him. And basically, then they have to kind of go on a mission to kill the shark. And they hire Quint, the big game poacher, if you will, of the movie. And they go out, the three of them, to hunt down the shark. So we talked about them as the trio, but what were some of your favorite moments in the movie? We'll start with Tim. Tim, what scene really stands out to you in this movie?
My God, how do you choose so many? The opening scene, you talk about something grabbing you by the balls with the swimmer, the skinny dipping, of course, and you just think she's having a lovely time, a night swim at the beach, and then just is gripped by such sheer terror, which I imagine movie audiences were as well, because that's sort of the last thing you expect to see as your opening scene.
Horrible.
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, my God. And it really is prolonged. It goes on. It's not graphic. You don't see blood and guts or anything like you probably would today, but it is incredibly emotional. And it elicits a response. I tried, and again, I can't remember even the first time I saw it and how I reacted to it, but just as an adult trying to put myself in that person's shoes, and thinking what a hopeless situation, right? It just, all of that. And Spielberg is just, we can sing the praises of Steven Spielberg all day, but just innately he, I think, understands how to conduct and control the emotions of a viewer through the language of film, and that is just so on display, so exemplified throughout this movie, that on a grand scale, being the blockbuster that it is, but anything like that just hits really hard. Again, another attack scene on the beach with the kid, the Kittner
boy.
Yeah, and just the shower of blood.
Yeah,
in broad daylight, of course, too. Just the juxtaposition there is, it is chilling.
Yeah,
so I think those two are kind of competing in my mind for holy shit scenes of this movie.
And when you think about how they shot that opening scene, basically they had ropes on her legs, and this was a stunt woman. She was used to that kind of stuff. But yeah, they had to really yank her,
and they're dragging her on pulleys underwater.
Yeah, so it was quite.
That sounds terrifying.
Mm-hmm. All right, Eric, what are some of what's the scene that stands out, or a favorite scene of yours in this first one?
For sure. Well, I was definitely kept trying to search my recesses and when's the first time I saw this movie, because obviously I believe I'm the youngest of the foursome, so I might have seen it in a film class in high school. Maybe the first time.
That'd be awesome.
But,
I know. I was like, I would have taken that class.
yeah. I know I definitely saw a lot of prominent films, like certain films that you remember, like, first time I was there, like, when I saw it. But, nonetheless, I was thinking about this film, and, like, because I rewatched, I own the Blu-ray. Obviously, it's the only film of the series you need to own is the Blu-ray. And, just certainly the first scene is quite striking. First, by the fact, once again, we go to the fact that this was a PJ movie in 75, and you can very much see that woman is naked, and you can very much see a lot of it, especially in crystal clear Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. So, but that's certainly it's a wonderful scene, and obviously you establish that score like right off the bat, and like that's like the specific score, like when you know that shark is around. Certainly, what Tim said, I did notice like the big pool of blood for like with Andy's death this time around. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I didn't notice it as much in previous viewings. And it happens really quick. Like it's less than 20 minutes into the film.
It's otherwise a subdued scene. Like he just kind of goes under, and you're thinking, "Oh, the shark got him," and then you see all the blood, and you're like, "Oh, really got him."
And that's a scene built with a lot of tension because we've already established the shark, and we're establishing Brody is on like high alert about it as we're dealing with the town politics. Like they want to scare people away because they're a tourist town. They need like the tourist money. So
they do a fake out right before it too.
Oh yeah,
with the guy with the fin underwater, and again with Brody being on high alert. It's not a jump scare because they don't play it that way to the audience, but you can tell like that's contributing to Brody's anxiety seeing that.
And amazingly enough, they get away with it a second time later on in the film, but certainly I guess that comes across more as a jump scare, but it's very effective with the two kids like playing a joke. And almost getting shot for it.
Mm-hmm. And then he ends up in the lagoon over there. So the guy who's helping out the boys. Scott, what's some of your favorite scenes or moments in the first Jaws?
As Tim and Eric discussed those scenes, but one scene that actually stuck with me was the bonding scene with Brody, Hooper, and Quint when they're on the boat at night.
Yeah, it's known as the Indianapolis scene. Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about the USS Indianapolis, which I thought was just BS, and I paused the movie, and we all have computers in our pockets now, so I Googled it, and I was like, holy crap, that actually happened.
Yes.
And
I worked on a show for the History Channel on that. It's an amazing story.
It's such a chilling scene with him discussing how, like, they were, like, just staying close to each other to stay warm and fighting off sharks and everything, and it just, with that, and I think, Quint got a death wish because he feels he should have died on the Indianapolis. So I just thought that was such a great scene, like, because you see them bonding about their scars at first, and then they're like, how'd you get this? And he talks about how he got, like, the tattoo, I guess, like, burned off. I'm not sure how they did it in the 70s, but it was just such a great scene to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. That's still one of my favorite scenes too. And it's like they compare the war wounds, but for me, I'm gonna go. There are a few that stand out. The time when they're on the dock, and Hooper wants to open up the thing, and Murray Hamilton's like, "You're not gonna have some kind of half-ass autopsy on a fish and see that Kettner boy spill out
on the dock."
The great Lee Fierro smacks the shit out of Roy Scheider when she shows up. Yeah. My boy is dead. Wham! But on the boat, some other times on the boat, like just the little subtle things they do on the boat when, Quint is sitting there, he downs that beer and then he crushes the can. And then there's Hooper drinking, like, I think coffee out of a styrofoam cup, and he just scratch the cup.
Crush, yeah.
Yes. And of course,
that's funny.
And then there's the reveal. The first time we actually do see the shark.
There we go.
Yeah, where he's putting some of this shit in there, and the shark just pops up, and he's got the cigarette in his mouth. He slowly backs up, and he's like, "You're gonna need a bigger boat."
Saying what we're all thinking,
which is, a lesson, and I've taken some screenwriting classes because I write in my spare time, and they said that's like one of the best ways to teach somebody on how to really think of economy with your words. Like there's a whole thing Brody could have said there. Like, oh my God, did you see that shark? It came up, it was so big, and we're gonna have to get, more guns and call in the Navy and the Coast Guard and everything like that. No. You're gonna need a bigger boat. And said so slowly and so like the man is obviously scared and he's been shaken, and it accomplishes so much with that one little line of dialogue.
Yes. Improv line of dialogue, not even the script.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
Roy Schreier, right there on the spot.
Good on him. Well, it also illustrates the importance of economy of shark, which we've talked about already. Just how they couldn't use as much of the shark as they wanted to. The mechanical shark, Bruce, they called it, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently, yes. This is named after Spielberg's lawyer. This mechanical contraption that kept failing.
Hence the shark in Finding Nemo was named after this Bruce.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I never connected those, oddly enough. But Spielberg talked about he wanted to show a lot more of the shark throughout the movie, like from the beginning, and yet that's our first big reveal. Now, pretty much in the third act of the film, and gives us the great all-time memorable quote there. But man, what a case of turning chicken shit into chicken salad that was, where you can't do what you want, so you're having to find all of these creative workarounds, like all the shots underwater where they had to kind of innovate their camera equipment to accomplish that, and sort of taking it to almost the shark's POV with those underwater shots and seeing people swimming and just all this stuff that was just done as an accommodation because you couldn't use this shark that you've designed. And God, it just goes to show sometimes having less is more. Another example of that being, to take it back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You think if Marvel had access to their biggest characters, their Spider-Mans and their X-Men's, we wouldn't be seeing movies like Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. It's more of a commercial example of trying to string some art out of your inherent limitations. And here is just a kind of another version of that in the 70s. But, it shouldn't have worked, but when you've got somebody the caliber of Steven Spielberg at the helm, this is what we get, and we're all the better for it.
Mm-hmm. So
for sure.
Before we move on to the sequel, let's kind of go around and talk about, there are so many, now we talk about the lead trio. We have the Hooper, the Quint, and Brody, but there are so many great minor characters in this movie. Kind of go around and kind of state, like, who are some of your favorite minor characters and why, basically. So, Scott, which of the minor characters do you love to see on screen in this movie?
The mayor.
Yes.
I'm glad I got to go first on this, but he's such an asshole. And as Tim brought up earlier, like with them wanting to keep the island open, it's very similar to what we're seeing right now, where it's, I have written down here, I said, closing the beach for 24 hours during a shark attack is like reopening the states in the middle of a pandemic. And, and then, because, like, we can't lose out on the 4th of July. And it's like, every time you see him, you just hate him. And then at the very end, in the hospital scene, he's like, I have a son, too. Or, wait, is that the second one?
He's got a son.
Yeah, he got a son, because it's the scene when they bring Michael to the because Michael somehow survives. The shark swims past him, which is one of the more mind-boggling things. Was he full from eating the guy in the rowboat? I don't know. But, but that's in the first one. They're smoking in the hospital. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. There was obviously no rules.
I need to bring this point up. Yeah. There's so much smoking. I was actually surprised watching this time around. Like, I guess I'm so inoculated with the anti-smoking material these days. But yeah, it's like it's everywhere.
A lot of drinking too.
Oh yeah,
casual drink.
I think they mix
That's
wine,
not to be
they mix wine
surprised.
together.
Small main town, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So Murray,
But
go ahead.
But I will add that the movie is over 2 hours long. I know it's not with the character, but it moves so quick that, the way I count movies with how bad it is I look at my cell phone just to be like, oh, how much time is left? But with this movie, I was not looking at my cell phone at all. I was wanting to see what was happening.
Mm-hmm. All right, Eric, what's a minor character that you love? They're part of the movie.
I guess some minor character I love. I mean, outside of Mayor Vaughn, for sure. I just his where he's not like entirely a bad guy, but it's like he just has his priorities way out of whack.
Yeah.
But I certainly like. There's certainly Meadows, who is played by the co-writer. I'm sorry, I get this actor's name wrong. Carl
Gottlieb.
Gottlieb.
Gottlieb. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
I know. I worry about people getting my last name wrong.
Which I did on the first time you were on the show. But
Yes. So he plays Meadows, who is, I guess, connected with the paper, like he's the editor-in-chief and such, and also maybe on the city council. And surprisingly enough, learned today that
he's one of the selectmen, which is a great term.
Selectmen. Yes. Him and Miss Watkins. She's a character I always remember. And she's like in 2 and 4 as well. She's also on the select board. And I'm trying. Oh, sorry. I was trying to remember the actor's name. The fisherman who helps Hooper when he comes onto the island. He's part of like the montage of like all the people going out hunting for the shark for the reward. He's like a very salty like island guy, like a native islander. Like it always stands out. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. And certainly Debbie Hendricks. I like him too.
Yeah, those are great. Tim, what are some of your favorite minor characters?
I mean, I don't know that you consider them minor characters, but just the Brody family, really, like Ellen and the kids. I mean, certainly the kids don't get a lot in this movie, but some of this is, I guess, through the benefit of hindsight, knowing that we're going to continue to follow them to somewhat unintentional comedic effects. Yes. Later on. But it is just interesting to track their development and tie it back to this film. And I just like the relationship between the Brodys as a married couple. I mean, I'm glad that Ellen's not banging Hooper in this movie. Like, it works a lot better to see them as a pretty well-adjusted, like, middle-class family.
Yeah, their marriage seems
and being in over their head with this whole situation, really.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the great Lee Fierro, who actually recently passed away, was pretty good as Mrs. Kittner with when she shows up, all in black, and just walks up to Brody and rips him a new one. I like, just the kind of like the salty fishermen, like kind of the crew that are there, like that think they know everything. And like they think it's the first time when they catch the tiger shark, they have no clue what he's saying. Well, Hooper's like, tiger shark, like what? Like you guys are fishing.
It's a what?
Or
that's such an underrated funny.
Or when nobody's going in the water, and the mayor goes up to that guy, he's like, get in the water. He's like, no, we just ate. No, get in the water. And he goes in there with his wife and his 3 kids, like just serving them up for lunch, just because his boss told him to.
Get in the water.
All right, so we're gonna move on to Jaws 2. But any final thoughts? Something that we may not have mentioned or talked about with the original Jaws?
Yes, for sure. Surprising. I actually was clock watching this time around. As we discussed before we started recording, this is the longest of these series of movies. That's like 2 hours and 4 minutes. Thankfully, as we go along, the time goes down. The run time, only because the movies aren't as good as we go along. But I was shocked. Like, it's an hour into the movie when we get to essentially the three leads by themselves on Orca. Like, it's a whole hour of them hunting the shark and bonding together. Like, I think that's remarkable filming. I don't think you would really do that too much these days. I mean, you would certainly have a movie of that length. I don't think you would have that kind of characterization, that kind of long build up. With the they encounter the shark maybe once, twice before like the final confrontation when like everything goes to hell. Yeah,
I was gonna say something along similar lines there. That this is the longest film in the series, and it doesn't feel like it, even though like that whole second half of the movie is kind of slow and deliberately boring, but in a way that really works and holds your attention. So, yeah, it's just remarkable how it sort of turns into a different film after that crossing that hour mark. And I can't imagine it's something they do today.
Yeah. And one other thing I guess I want to talk to Andy about, because this is certainly the approachable blockbuster. I mean, this was the things they did at the time, like the mass marketing promotion, the mass wide opening. I mean, this opened on, I believe Wikipedia says, 470 screens, which was a lot in 1975 compared to 2,000 plus these days. Because they had like different marketing, different distribution models back then. Sometimes you go like a few cities, sometimes you go like a few, areas of the country and slowly move it out. And I guess
I never knew. That was something I didn't know until reading up on just the making of this film and the phenomenon that it was. Like Sid Sheinberg, the head of Universal, was like, yeah, after that opening night premiere, we decided we're going to go nationwide simultaneously on 400 plus screens. I was like, it sounds like just something that they've always done, but I never knew that wasn't a thing until this movie.
Yeah, and movies stayed for much longer. Nowadays you get a window for a decent, like a movie doing well. Yeah, you have a decent window to see it, but anything that shits the bed, opening,
it's out of there.
It's out. I mean, I remember like entire things playing for entire summers when I was a kid. I believe it was like 1982. I remember E.T. came out and Rocky 3. I remember riding my bike to the same movie theater all summer, and I saw, I think, E.T. like 4 or 5 times in the theater and Rocky 3 times. You had that ability back then, whether it was a better system or not. Wow. Yeah, it was much different. It was mass marketed. There was Jaws everywhere. They added it to. We'll talk about this later on when we're wrapping up. But Universal Studios Hollywood added something for it, and it was a phenomenon like we had, like the country had never seen before, and it translates internationally. This doesn't get lost in translation. This is a story that could take place anywhere.
True.
Yeah. For sure. This movie must have been open at least like 6 months. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're obviously we're recording this. We're coming up tomorrow. Will be the anniversary, the 45th anniversary when it debuted, when it opened up.
Wow.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at this gross, like it was the highest grossing movie of the year for sure. Just without inflation, this is $1975. Number one, $133 million, and comparison, number 2 is the Best Picture winner, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Not a problem with that. Like you can argue, like which film could have been better. That movie only made $59 million.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this becomes the highest grossing film of all time for its time
until Star Wars.
2 years
until
later.
Star Wars.
Yeah, 2 years later.
Until Steven's buddy George.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Debuts on the scene.
All
yeah.
Right. Wow. Scott, so do you have any final thoughts on the original Jaws?
It's just a masterpiece. I loved it from the beginning credits to the end credits. I thought it was amazing. The only thing I learned was that Richard Dreyfuss, how short he was when I was first seeing him. I was like, damn, who's this midget? But I just thought it was great.
He has a slight.
He's got a lot of gravitas.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe, and I think he turned it down initially or something because.
He didn't want to do it.
Yeah, because he had just been on Broadway and blah blah blah, and I think Robert Shaw had, was kind of surly towards him. Like literally, like the relationship on screen was kind of come from off screen because Shaw's kind of looked down on him.
Sounded like Dreyfuss was a little bit full of himself doing this movie, and maybe thought it was kind of beneath him, and Robert Shaw was kind of a shit stirrer at the same time. So you put those two personalities together, and especially given the roles that they're playing, and it's going to get kind of explosive. But probably got better performances out of it.
Yeah, them trying to one up each other.
I know you shouldn't believe everything that reads on Wikipedia, but certainly the Jaws Wikipedia, it's so massive. There's so much information.
Yeah.
I love reading this, and I'm missing the part. Apparently, Shaw would disappear from the set. He would fly to Canada when he was doing with tax-related reasons.
Oh, God.
And excessive drinking, which probably helped with the character.
Well, I think
that character's clearly drunk.
Yeah,
He's a functioning alcoholic.
I think Lee Marvin. They wanted Lee Marvin was one of the first people, and he turned it down.
Yeah,
because he like, why would I want to pretend? I'm going out to do the real thing, sport fishing kind of thing. And it was somebody else that wouldn't do it for because it would have put him in like he owed taxes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody owed a bunch of money,
and they felt like they should if they were to work, they'd basically be paying working for the government for free, basically. Right.
And it seemed like Spielberg kind of Svengali really shied her into doing it because he's like talking up all these people who turned it down, and he can't find his leading man, and reality was he didn't really want them. Like Charlton Heston was one of the names floated, and Spielberg thought he was too big a name, so he's like, I don't even really want to ask whether he'll take it or not. And he
doesn't have the everyman appeal that
definitely
brings.
Yeah, I agree with him on that point. And like he's having this conversation with Roy Scheider, he's like, "Well, you didn't ask me." Like, "Oh, you would do it?" So that's kind of a funny. Again, you don't know if it's one of those apocryphal kind of things that you hear about, but I don't know. It sounds like something that could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one more thing to add. Sorry about this.
All right.
I think the board was covering up shark attacks that had happened before, because this was Brody's first year as a sheriff, which is if you're scared of water, why the hell are you taking a job that's on the beach? But anyway.
Island,
yeah.
But
you want to get away from 1970s New York.
True.
I guess so. But the board said that maybe a swimmer got caught up in a ship propeller again. So maybe they were passing these shark attacks off as like
there you go.
Too close to boats. So I caught that in the beginning part of the movie. So it's a spinful theory that I have that these shark attacks have been rampant in Amity, but
could have been
covering it up.
Yeah, it could have been happening for a while.
Yeah, and then Brody's like, not on my beach. All right,
exactly.
So we have this masterpiece. Then we move on. 3 years later, June 16th, 1978, Jaws 2 is released. Early thoughts, I'm going to say. I again don't think I saw this in theater because I was just shy of 6 when this movie came out. So again, bad parenting would have been on Carolyn Irv's fault. And I did remember seeing this though, maybe on home video, maybe later on. And I think this movie may have scared me more because I think I was closer in age to Sean Brody, and this we'll talk about it as we get through but that scene at the end where they're kind of trapped on the boats that won't move, that scared me because that would have been my nightmare at that age. So, so it's a sequel. You got to go bigger. You got to jump in more. So the movie opens. There's a new hotel in Amity, and there are 2 scuba divers looking for the wreckage of the Orca to photograph it, and they get attacked and killed. And then the camera is recovered the next day. And then the shark then swiftly kills a female water skier. The driver tries to kill the creature using a gas tank and a flare gun, which is kind of like how what happened at the end of the first one. But, the shark is a little too wise this time. And this causes the boat to explode, which kills the driver instantly and severely burns the right side of the shark's face. So he's scarred. He's pissed. And then we find, the big reveal of the dead killer whale carcass, which really kind of just says, killer whale, nothing fucks with a killer whale, basically, and you see a dead one, so there's something badass out there. So kind of go around and talk about your initial thoughts about Jaws 2. Let's start with Eric this time. Eric, when you saw Jaws 2, what were you thinking, and what were your first impressions of the movie?
I was thinking, I'm of two minds of like, well, if you're going to do this movie, I mean, the concept is, it's a shark returns to Amity. Like, you get everyone back you can, like, because everyone except for Hooper is pretty much back. They're still filming in Martha's Vineyard, at least some of the movie. I guess most of the water stuff was filmed around Florida. Mm-hmm. But I'm also the thing of like it's almost limiting the story, because really, like, the story at this point is like you're telling a story about a killer shark. I guess you sort of broadened it and sort of like you could put the basic idea of a shark terrorizing people almost anywhere. I feel like you're sort of it's I don't know. Even if you do that, like, you're thinking about how good the first movie is. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't in this case.
Yeah, it's a tough act to follow.
And obviously this movie was made, so hopefully it can make money for Universal, because obviously the first one made so much money.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not great. It's it's good enough. I guess I like Scheider. I like I still like his problems with Mayor Vaughn. It seems sort of like a rehash. Like, we're going through the same way again. Obviously, you see, like, probably the first movie's effect on Brody. He's a lot more trigger happy. Certainly.
Yeah, he definitely has PTSD, especially when he's shooting at the blue, like the family
bluefish.
Of the bluefish.
Yeah. And people are just looking at him like, yeah, you've lost it, and he gets fired for it.
Yeah, but not for nothing, I've been bluefishing. You don't mess with bluefish. They're nasty little buggers they'll take a chunk out of your finger, trust me. All right, so Tim.
Tastes pretty good, though.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you don't find a lot of recipes, though, because it's a very regional fish for this part of the country. Anyway, Tim, what are your initial thoughts on Jaws 2?
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of thing, it inevitably invites the comparison to the first, which is a masterpiece. You already know you're not going to have that when you're going into a sequel that is a direct continuation with basically the same premise and the same characters. That's an uphill battle. Like, as much as you're kind of having to suspend your disbelief in that first Jaws film, it's presented in a way that is so very human and still kind of grounded, and it's so sincere, right? And this is the difference between kind of how they did that and how they do a lot of shark movies today. Like, it's not doing that intentionally bad or goofy, ironic thing that is the way you lean with many of these creature features. It's such an earnest type of film, and yet still works. A lot of that, you got to say credit to Steven Spielberg. This is not directed by Steven Spielberg. No. This is the sequel. And it's definitely where commercial interests override, like, artistic intent big time. So you sort of have to go in thinking, like, all right, here's this story. That it happened once is sort of hard to buy. That it's happening again, like, not the second summer in a row, but certainly the second summer in the same small town sheriff's career. It's sort of a lot to swallow, but let's try to go along with it. And for what it is, like, I do sort of enjoy the character work with Brody. He does feel like a man who is the sum of his experiences by this point, like the sort of saying without saying it that he totally has PTSD. And the whole approach is quite different, where it's now almost like a teen slasher, where the killer is now this shark that is stalking these kids. So, you know, they're kind of marketing it a little bit differently, I think, and that's maybe reflected in the storytelling. So, I mean, of the sequels, it's the one that's, you know, the most like a normal movie, I guess you could say.
Yes.
But I don't think it compares to the original at all. And, like, would the world be worse for it not existing? Well, in some ways, because then we wouldn't have Jaws 3D or Jaws the Revenge. So I guess it's worth it to get us to that point.
Yes, exactly. Scott, Jaws 2, what's your initial thoughts on this movie?
So, as we said at the start of the podcast, I'd never seen any of this. So I went in with, like, all these movies sucked after the first one. I was pleasantly surprised with the second one. As Tim was saying, it did feel like a teenage slasher movie. I have written down a bunch of teenagers equals fresh meat. It did seem like the movie didn't really know what it wanted to be, if like a teenage slasher or, you know, like a character study on Brody. Because he definitely, like, it shows him fighting demons. Like, when he gets fired, he gets drunk. Somehow he still has the sheriff's car. They didn't take that away when they fired him. Whatever, but like, he has his problems. One thing I did notice, that if anyone watches Friday Night Lights TV show, the mayor looks like Buddy Garrity. So that made me chuckle when I realized that.
Yep,
this
there's
time
some
around,
real vibes.
I was like, why does he look like Buddy Garrity to me? And I have written down, for people that like baseball, I said, what are these sharks on? Where are these sharks on? HGH? Are they coming from Balco?
HGH.
And one of the lines halfway through the movie is I call the person second-rate Hooper, the woman who's working with, like, for the killer whale, and she tells Brody sharks don't take things personally, and I was like, you should probably tell the writers that in the fourth one. But I legit thought it was better than it had any right to be, and it was, but it seemed like there was, like, two different script writers who was trying to make one movie with the teenagers, because you have them, like, drinking at the bar, which I know there was, like, that around that time, if you were 18 you were able to drink, but
yeah, you were 18 then.
But and when we get a little bit further, I have a little bit more notes about the kids. Just but I said, the movie had any right, was better than it had any right to be. So I enjoyed it. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. It's obviously not as good as the first one, but yeah.
You want to know something funny, something stupid I'll tell on myself for the longest time, I had never seen, like, the first 20 minutes of this movie, or however long it is. Basically, I had not seen that water skiing attack scene for a long time. And so when I saw what I had seen of this film and saw the shark and how it was kind of gnarly looking and scarred up, I thought they were trying to suggest that this was the same shark from the first film somehow survived or resurrected in some way and was, like, kind of battle damaged. And I thought that for a long time as a kid, and then later when I actually saw the entire film, it was like, oh no, it actually gets burned up really bad early in the film in that scene to give it that kind of cool effect.
That roasted marshmallow look.
Yeah, there you go. And that's an unintentionally hilarious scene, by the way, when the water skier blows herself up in the boat.
Yes.
Yeah, she's like,
something similar. I feel like there's a similar scene. I just can't think of it right now in a movie where someone accidentally kills himself like that.
Yeah.
Basically, any slasher movie from 1980 till 2020.
Well, again, this is another movie of, like, bad decisions, you know,
Yeah.
and being a dick, like, I'll get you killed.
Yeah.
It's not just. I think it's just kind of the abruptness of it. Like it's an enormous explosion that happens, and then it like cuts to the old lady on the shore who just kind of stands up. It's just like, oh shit. She's like wondering what is going on. There's this boat fire, and then just this massive explosion, and that's the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ben Tramer 5's from Halloween 2, but he's not directly responsible for his own death.
Right.
Yeah, so the older son, Michael disobeys, wants to impress a girl, so a bunch of them get all their boats together, and they go out to, I forget the name of the point, but they're all headed out to, and they kind of have issues while they're out there, and they go there, and there's a bunch of the little brother tags along, which is terrifying to me back then,
Right.
And they're go past a team of divers led by an instructor, and they get attacked while they're back there with a couple that stays back to mess around, Tina and Eddie, who had strayed away from the others, and poor Eddie falls in the water and is killed by the shark. And then the shark, later on, they see the evacuation of Tom, and they hear about Brody, and Brody has to do the one thing that, terrifies him is he takes a boat out by himself to go out and try to rescue the kids. And meanwhile, Brody also is no longer the chief of police. Larry is now, not Larry, Christ, what the hell is his name?
Higgins.
Higgins is now the thing. So what do you guys think of how they kind of set up the final moments of this film, where you have basically all the teenagers all roped together, and Brody's like on his way to try to save the day?
Yeah, I have here that all the kids are dumb as shit. All this ocean, and they somehow wreck 8 boats, like intersections, and I was like, how are you doing this? Like, you kind of deserve it. The shark is like, I'm just going to eat here the rest of the day. And, I have written down, I said, at this point, just give the shark the whole damn ocean. I'll just live on land. If they want to terrorize it that much, go ahead. I was hoping the shark would actually eat more teenagers.
Right.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. And it's Cable Junction, by the way. Sorry, it was for my lack of yeah. You would think more of them were going to die, but
it's a sequel. You want to go bigger. You're going to have more attacks, more disposable kind of bystander type characters. I mean, what better way to do it than with this group of unlikable teens? And it's weird because we've compared it to a teen slasher type horror movie. And yet, speaking to like how it's maybe cobbled together by different writers, it would be as if you're watching a Friday the 13th movie, and rather than having the final girl, you have one of the teens, their dad comes in and kills Jason. Like, it would just be so jarring.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't as much of a trope, as much of an established trope at the time, in 1978, but looking back on it through contemporary eyes, it's sort of, you figure one of the teens, like maybe Michael is going to emerge as the hero and kill the shark, but it's like, no, they're all dumbasses and have to be rescued by this dad.
Well, Michael gets a head injury and like goes out in the second quarter.
Yeah,
so it's like,
for sure,
good for nothing, and you're letting your little brother die. Like, what?
Yeah, narrowly survives for the second time in 2 movies too.
Yeah,
so they are hard to root for, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it is very weird. Considering this, you think of this more of the big teen groups, unlikable characters, like an '80s thing. And this is 78, like right before Halloween. Like, I know obviously there have been like teens and slashers, well, not slashers, but horror movies in general. But it's just sort of a odd thing.
Mm-hmm.
Considering this is such an adult movie, like the first movie is such an adult movie.
Yes, serious adult drama, basically.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Eric, but all the teenagers are given no character development. Like, virtually none.
Yeah.
I don't even know half their names. So I was like, just kill them.
Oh, I know the kid from Back to School. Rodney Dangerfield's son's in it in this thing. Other than that, they're unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Was one of them meant to be the mayor's son?
Yeah.
Yes. Eyebrows. The big eyebrows.
Eyebrows.
Thickness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
the one who's a dick.
The name doesn't skip. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a dick right away. He talks about some girls like has flat chested.
No, he said she had sparrow boobs, which I had no idea what that means. I didn't know if that was the saying back then.
Not me either.
And that I think her name was Jackie. Oh my god.
I was hoping the shark would eat her.
Oh my god. All she did was scream the entire time. It's like, shut up already.
Jackie and Tina and
Yeah.
I did feel bad when Marge gets killed because she saves dumbass Sean from being.
That's the one that was like Becky Lynch. I was like, Becky Lynch just got killed.
They didn't. They didn't kill the nerd characters, right?
No,
they didn't kill.
No, the only kids that get
one is
killed
Keith Gordon.
are Keith Gordon is one of them. That's what I mean, Rodney Dangerfield's kid. But yeah, only Eddie and Marge, I think, are the only kids that get killed. So they still have a pretty high batting average for survival. Those kids, which you know, we got to take points off the score in this movie for that.
Yeah, they don't even kill the mayor's kid, do they?
No, they shouldn't.
They don't kill like the overweight. Supposed to be like funny friend of Michael's. I was expecting him to die.
Come on,
like,
these are such stock characters, and they're not even killing them.
I know. Okay, and then go ahead.
Honestly, I more prefer a documentary about the behind the scenes of making this movie rather than the movie itself. Because like the two directors, they fired the first one.
Yeah, first.
They had
God,
bring back Carl Gottlieb to write the movie again. Scheider not wanting to be involved in this. This is the best story.
Having a nervous breakdown, right?
Dude, he was forced to do this movie after he left The Deer Hunter. He was supposed to be the lead of The Deer Hunter, and he left before production. De Niro was the last minute sub.
Wow.
And then Universal's like, you have a 3-picture contract with us. Like, you're going to enforce this. So you have to do Jaws 2.
So Roy Scheider, he bet on the right horse, but was contractually obligated to do this.
Yes.
And he was trying to get out of it, right? He kept playing little all these little stunts on set. Like he said he had a nervous breakdown, or he's having stomach problems, or whatever.
Taking a fight with the director.
Yeah.
A physical fight. They actually have like.
Yeah, so Brody, catches up with them, and they're all kind of hooked up, and some of them manage to, jump off and get over to Cable Junk to the island, I guess, the little rock formation. But meanwhile, Sean and the screamy cry girl are there the whole time, and Brody tries to hook them up and bring them in, but brings up a power cable, which he sits there on basically a little inflatable raft. And
a cable here on Cable Junction.
Yes, a ginormous cable, no less, that he's trying to hold on to, and he's smacking the hell out of it and gets the shark over to take a big, nice bite on it. So, I mean, I know they mistake, humans for seals, but, come on. The sharks aren't that dumb. Come on. You got to hop out of the water to take a bite out of this thing. So, what'd you guys think of the ending of this one?
So, was the ending the basis for the Universal ride?
Yes.
Must have been, yeah.
Yeah, because they kind of take it kind of ends that in a similar fashion. Yes.
Okay, because I when I went to Universal the one time, sorry, going off topic. When I went to Universal for the one time, they had just closed it, so I never got to see it.
Oh yeah,
I've ridden it.
I've been on it too.
Yeah,
I don't even remember if I did. I more remember Back to the Future. Anything else?
Yeah, we could talk about the theme park ride a little bit later, but yes, there are YouTube videos you can view for ride-alongs in all the parks. I think it might still be at the Japanese, the one in Japan at their park.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's the same ride no matter where you go. And yes, your beloved Harry Potter got Jaws killed.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to go this August. Now it's postponed to next August. Fucking COVID. Anyway, kind of give your thoughts on the ending and the movie. Your kind of wrap up your movie thoughts. Tim, we'll start with you.
It's not quite as cinematic, maybe, as that. Definitely as that original ending with the propane tank and the explosion and the shower of guts and gore and shark brains. But it's a little bit similar in execution. It's like the shark slipping on a banana peel, basically. Talk about not a realistic depiction of shark behavior. I guess that ship is sailed by this point. This is a shark that attacks boats and various other non-shark things that happen here. But yeah, it's like I said, it's the dad rescuing the kids, and we're not really invested in seeing the kids live, including Brody's teenage son. Like, he sort of sucks, and the little brother is a pain in the ass. So because the characters aren't as likable as they are in the first one, that certainly hurts this. And I thought that this movie overall, it felt longer. Just that long stretch where the kids are in the raft, and I mean, there is some suspense and some tension there, but overall it just felt oppressively longer than the first movie, even though its runtime is not. So, but I mean, I do agree that this is a much better film than it is like any right to be. This sequel to Jaws that gets all the same characters back and does sort of the same plot. You would expect a whole lot worse. Yes.
Eric, what are your thoughts on the ending and general wrap-up thoughts on the movie?
Well, it's the best ending you could be. Like, I guess you can't really top that explosion in the first movie, but you can certainly try. Electrocuting a shark, certainly. I think it's certainly the best ending. It's certainly the best sequel of those other two coming up. But yeah, you can argue the quality decreases in an ascending order. But yeah, it's at least they set it up. I guess the point was that they set it up early enough. They had that power line thing. It was just didn't come out of nowhere. I wish like Brody did get to use like his was it poison tip bullets?
Oh yeah,
that's a big.
That was a nice little scene. Yeah, that was a nice little scene. I do like the score. John Williams does return for this film. It's a nice score. It's better than the movie probably deserves.
Yeah, you do have John Williams back. That is to its credit.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So, it's I guess you maybe just call it middle of the road. I wouldn't even just call it, like, bad. Like, there's certainly dumb stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, yeah. So, if you...
Yeah, you could say something like
it
doesn't completely suck.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. What about you with how Jaws 2 ends and where kind of the whole movie?
Yeah, I sort of go with what Tim and Eric had said, but the way that they shot when Brody was about to electrocute the shark, it confused me at first because I thought it was going to show that it was two sharks, because like they did like a quick cut when it was coming. I was like, oh shit, that's a nice little turn. There's actually two sharks. But they shot it weird, and I was like, all right, well, that's it. And I have written down here in my notes, how did they get 2 more sequels out of this? But
you're gonna find out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna find out. But and they also kind of made Brody look like a moron, where he gets he plays chicken with the shark and has to turn and crashes into the rocks.
Oh yeah,
yes.
He ruins his police property.
Yeah, how are you doing this right now? But I mean, yeah, it was better than it had any right to be, because I had no idea what the backstage shenanigans with Jaws 2 with the two directors and Roy Schneider trying to, act out of the movie. So it's amazing it got made.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to put a pause in the Jaws talk for a moment, and when we return, Jaws goes 3D and seeks some revenge. With Eric Eells, Scott Shifflett, and Tim Capel, I'm Andy Atherton. Stick around. We'll be right back here on Blockbuster Rewind. All right, Place to Be Nation, welcome back to episode number 1, our Jaws discussion here on Blockbuster Rewind. I'm here with Scott Shifflett, Eric Eells, and our guest, Tim Capel. We're going to get back to talking about big, giant sharks and really into some ridiculousness, even more so than we've already discussed up to this point. But first, let's talk about what's going on over here at Place to Be Nation Pop. On the latest Great Debate, I was joined by Sean Kidd, Matt Souza, and Scott. We discussed and debated a variety of pop culture topics. A lot of fun show. I suggest you check it out. The latest Laugh in Theater, Derek Cornett stopped by, and he joined me to watch the classic baseball comedy Major League, because that's about the only baseball we're getting these days. On the newest It Was a Thing on TV, the trio looked at the classic game show Supermarket Sweep, the 1983-84 sitcom We Got It Made, and the newest version of Press Your Luck, hosted by Elizabeth Banks. And on Diamond Conversations, Ian, or Chad, welcomed LA Dodgers assistant pitching coach Connor McGinnis and his brother Mike McGinnis, the men behind the amazing training tool Clean Fuego. So also be able to make sure you check out the PTBN Wrestling Feed, which includes a dive into topics running the gamut from WWE through yesteryear. It includes the Place to Be podcast, Main Event, Jenny and the Gems, Body Pressure Luck, PTB NXT, Talking WCW, the NWA Saturday Special, and so much more. Make sure you subscribe today. And while you're at it, subscribe to Jennifer Smith's The Jenny Position feed with the new, it's the home of Geek and Sassy, Talking Pop, Freak Out Driving, Telling Stories, The Journey Through Infinity, and much, much more. And also, make sure you check out the North-South Connection, brought to you by JT Rosero, Chad Campbell, and Aaron George. It's the home for Wrestling Warzone, No Holds Barred, the Extreme 3-Ray Dance, Carolina Dreaming, Jeff Learns Wrestling. Lots and lots of great content over there. Don't forget our social media pages. The next tournament will be starting very soon. It was announced on the Place to Be podcast, and we could talk about it here since when you hear this, the Place to Be podcast will have been up for over a week. And our next tournament is The Greatest Song from a Movie, which is our big summer music tournament. It's going to be a ton of fun. I don't think we're going to have scores in it, so unfortunately the score from Jaws, as great as it is not going to be in that. But make sure you check out episodes, I believe you probably covered it by now, of the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular. Glenn and his brother Scott often discuss movie and film scores on their shows, which are a lot of fun. So don't forget, check out the greatest music movie from a song from a movie tournament. The tournament page will have been changed by now, so all you have to do is like and follow it, and all the matchups will go up very, very soon. And don't forget the 2020 Stretch Project, determining the greatest WCW match ever. You have all year to do your research, promote matches, and build your list. Conversation and rules can be found at facebook.com/GWCW matches or on Pro Wrestling Only's message board. I want to thank everybody who participated. The final results of the top 5 matches for the GWW was just released on PlayStation.com. So thank you everybody who submitted a ballot, and a big thank you to Tyler Kelly, the guy who really put in a crap ton of work to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And also don't forget, PlayStation.com. Each and every day we have new voices, fresh takes, bringing you articles on topics in the worlds of wrestling, sports, and pop culture, including Trent's SmackDown and Fox Report, This Week in the WWE by John Crow, Paulie's Perspective, Matt Rotella's live action Disney film reviews, Steve Riddle's animated Disney film reviews. We have lots going on over there. Hopefully some new voices will be coming soon, and all kinds of fun stuff going on. All the podcasts from all 4 feeds can be found on PlayStationNation.com. So check it out each and every day. All right, so back to the fun of the Jaws franchise and Jaws sequels. So in 1983, we get another entry on July 22nd, and this is titled Jaws 3D. Now,
as you do.
As you do back then, because so I did see this in the movie theater. I know for sure. I was just a scooch under 11 years old. I remember my sister and I went, and we took my little...
I was a bundle of cells.
You were a bundle of cells. And my little cousin, who I believe was 7 at the time, she's 3 years younger than me, we went to see this movie theater, and it was...
I was probably a fetus in July. 83, you said? So, I was born in September. I was more developed than that.
Yeah, you were probably... you were third trimester, so...
Yeah,
you were getting there. All right. So...
it was viable.
You were viable. You could have been popped out.
Arguably.
Right out. Okay. Anyway, so I remember seeing this though. I remember we get back then how you saw 3D was if you've ever seen the movie Back to the Future, one of Biff's henchmen, so to speak, played by Casey Simasco, has 3D glasses on. You'll notice one eye is blue and one eye is red. I forget the whole science behind that, but yes, that's what we were handed. When we went to go see that movie, you would get those in cereal boxes even sometimes to look at the back of your cereal box. And to say the 3D effects were, even for that day, were pretty bad. I mean, it was ridiculous. A lot of times it was, done just for, there were things done in the movie just to show that it was 3D. Yeah. And like when you see like a floating limb or a moray eel coming at you.
Yes, that's the one stands out in my mind.
So basically, a lot of people like to call this Jaws in SeaWorld. A great white shark enters an aquatic park through its closing gates, and under the senior Catherine K. Morgan, the park senior marine biologist and assistants notice that the resident dolphins are afraid of leaving their pen. They figure out there's a shark in there, and chaos ensues. So, what you guys think of this? Now, this, I don't know if it's really considered canon because it features Mike and Sean Brody, but
right.
Tim, what do you think of Jaws 3D?
I think this was the first Jaws sequel that I actually saw, because this is one that I know for sure that my cousin had recorded on VHS, like taped off of HBO or something. And so I watched it a lot as a kid, and I remember not even really liking it that much as a kid. Like, I thought the SeaWorld scenes were kind of cool and sort of made me want to visit SeaWorld. It sort of feels like an extended ad for SeaWorld, to be honest with you. And, now that I'm older, and the most recent watch of this movie I did was about 3 years ago, when I watched all the Jaws movies, one after the other, at the beach again. I mean, it's kind of hilarious. This is where they just round that corner where you cannot suspend your disbelief any longer, and you just have to take them for what they are, which are bad movies, and hope that they are enjoyable in their badness. And this one, again, I don't think we get near enough actual attack scenes by the shark. So there's that. So you're sort of working within that framework of it. It's not a very violent movie. There's not even a lot of action to speak of. But I do enjoy the gimmick. I think that if you're going to continue Jaws as a series, as a franchise, you could sort of repeat the first one once. I mean, that's debatable. We got, as we were discussing in our first half, maybe the best treatment of that you're going to get, doing a just direct continuation. After that point, you've got to resort to gimmicks if you're going to keep doing it. Should you keep doing it? No. But if you do, then okay, Jaws at SeaWorld. That's a high concept to hang your hat on. So I'm sort of on board with it. I think that's a fun premise. I don't know that they really maximize it, and I think it gets a little bit murky with the whole 3D gimmick on top of that. You know, it's the third film in the series, so of course we have to do 3D. See also Friday the 13th 3D.
Yes.
With similar effects. And it's kind of hilarious watching this without the quote-unquote benefit of 3D and just seeing the effects that were obviously meant to translate. And again, just the kind of weird static images that hang around on the screen like way too long, and you're like, oh, that was obviously supposed to be a 3D thing. And then the really big set pieces, like it's like a static image of a shark being moved in frame towards you, and you're like, oh, okay, that looks terrible, and I can't imagine it looks better with these blue and red 3D glasses.
It did not. Trust me.
Cheap-ass things that they distributed back then. So I don't know. It's a bad movie for sure. I don't think it's as fun bad necessarily as the next one we're going to talk about, but it has its charms. Like you can get together with a group of friends and sit down and bust on this movie and have a good time.
Yeah, this is like a mystery science theater kind of watch. You might want to think who can make the others laugh the most on this.
And I mean, Dennis Quaid in a shark movie, come on.
Yeah, and Bess Armstrong, whose career didn't really go anywhere after this. She did, I think, Quigley Down Under maybe, but other than that, she didn't do much. And
I believe she was also the mom on My So-Called Life.
Oh, okay. I never watched that.
There's people like that. Yeah.
Okay. So, Scott, you one thing I forgot to mention was that this is actually two sharks in this movie. There's the baby, which is the one that attacks the water skiers and that they capture and then try to put on display and ultimately dies. And then there's the mama, which is the big mamma jamma. So you had mentioned that there was, you would thought there might have been two sharks in the second one, but I guess obviously they were thinking the same thing and went, oh shit, we should put two in the next one. But what are your thoughts on Jaws 3D, since it's very fresh in your mind?
Yeah, I just watched this Wednesday night, and was this Dennis Quaid's first starring role?
It was up there.
It's amazing he had a career after this.
It was Leah Thompson's first movie, actually.
Oh my God.
I had no idea she was in that, and then I was just blown away with everything. So, we see the Brody brothers all grown up, and Sean Brody is supposedly scared of the water, but, if he's going to get some, then he's okay with the water then. So, I understand
Leah Thompson can get me on a bumper boat anytime, so.
Exactly. Some of the things were pretty funny, like a product of their time, like with the beeper scene. Now, beepers were a dime when I was young. Did any of you guys have a beeper?
Unfortunately, I did. I got one probably, I want to say the lifespan of my beeper was 1994 to 2002, maybe? Something like that. So I remember I did have a pager on 9/11 because, my ex-wife, my wife at the time had tried to page me because she couldn't get me on my cell phone because I was working in Manhattan that day. But that's another story for another pod. So anyway, you were talking about beepers and pagers.
Yeah, it was just one of the things that you don't see those anymore. And I was wondering I went on a couple deep dives with this.
You went down the beeper rabbit hole?
Surprisingly not on that one. But I did go down a deep dive with SeaWorld. I didn't think SeaWorld existed. I was wondering how the hell SeaWorld was okay with Jaws using that. I was like,
right?
That's good promotion,
Shark comes in and kills everyone.
Yeah, it's like, come to the next extraction, you might die.
They also kill a shark in captivity, basically.
Yeah, in front of everyone.
Yeah.
So, what the hell's going on? But I have written down here, Jurassic World stole the idea from Jaws 3, but did it 10 times better of the animals attacking.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, damn, I've seen this before. And I have like another name for Jaws 3D should have been Jaws 3 Flipper vs. Jaws, because you see the dolphins, basically are basically the dad Brody at the end.
Yeah,
the second one's coming for the save because Dennis Quaid's pretty useless, and so is the guy that takes the photos of animals. I never figured out what his character was in the movie.
Yes, that guy. I think he played Manimal, which was
it is.
Yes,
exactly
that was.
him.
I watched that as a kid.
God.
Philip Fitzroyce.
Yes, if you're not familiar with Simon McCorkindale, is the actor's name. If you're not familiar, look that show up. That is batshit crazy concept there.
I'm familiar with the show. I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, that's an animal.
I'm not familiar with the show. I can't say. Yeah. Wow. And what is he, like French or South African or something in this movie?
Something like that, yeah. Oh, boy.
And one of my favorite lines in the movie is towards the end with Louis Gossett Jr.'s character when he's down there in the control room and one of the guy gives him lip and he's like, "Nephew, I told you to do this." And I was like, "Oh, it's nepotism."
Yes, he's basically the mayor character in this movie.
Yeah. Except for not as bad. I don't really hate him as much as I did the mayor because, he does feel bad eventually when it all goes to hell and, is offering to help. But it was just one of these things where, the story was actually more cohesive than the second one. It didn't feel like I was watching, a Frankenstein movie. So just the effects were Frankenstein. But going in with lowered expectations after the second one, it was a breeze to watch. Just wondering how people still had careers.
Probably one of the lamest deaths, too, by a shark. You get killed by the shark's tongue up against the roof of its mouth, basically. that you end up on a cloud, in heaven, on the
he didn't get bitten in half or anything. He got swallowed whole, which is dreadful. But he's just kind of chilling there. You're right, because that's how they kill the shark. They're able to activate pull the pin that bombs because he's not quite swallowed yet, despite the shark eating that nephew right afterwards.
I mean, and the shark was it was kind of weird. Anyway, Eric, let's get your thoughts before we get back. All the rest of us go down the rabbit hole of ridiculousness here.
Yeah, these next two movies are not exactly big nostalgia movies for me. I didn't watch them in rotation on cable. So, no. So this is the first time really getting a deep dive into them. This is certainly what I kind of wanted out of these sequels. Just a shark in a different place and just see what happens. And certainly there's a interesting concept. The fact that it's actual SeaWorld and they call it that is amazing. Also amazing that there's not more deaths in the movie for such a big thing. All these different people, all these big crowds, and just the water skiers. The first water skiing when we first get the shark, the tease that's gonna eat someone in the beginning.
Yeah, that was a perfect setup. I thought the shark was going to take out all the water skiers because they had set it up with, them doing the pyramid. I was they're going to eat one and then they're all just going to fall into his mouth like dominoes. It would be an amazing scene. But they never did that.
Yeah, I think because maybe that was the baby shark, so it didn't really learn, had all of its hunting skills yet. I don't know. But Eric, continue on with your thoughts.
This is definitely it's interesting. This is obviously part of this brief revival of 3D. Obviously, we started with this Amityville 3D.
Amityville, yeah, that's
Amityville 3D for sure. Which I haven't seen any of these movies obviously in actual 3D. I watch them on video. Friday the 13th Part 3 is the best of these three for sure. I think it holds up for sure. Mostly because of the fact that it doesn't look blurry half the time. Like, this movie looks blurry.
Yeah.
Like, for the transfer out to 2D.
It looked blurry in the theater, trust me. It didn't look much better.
Yeah.
And the backgrounds vanish during some of those big effects. Those big supposed 3D effects.
It's quite the challenge. Because this movie is directed by Joe Eves, who worked on the first two movies. Like, he was the production designer and second unit director on, like, part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So he was graduating up. Like, this is his big shot. Like, to finally helm a movie. And and this thing, like, I always heard about Friday the 13th Part 3, it's like, you're more focused on the in-camera effects for 3D than anything else. Like, it overshadows everything else because it's so time-consuming. And just the fact that, like, you're doing 3D and you're working with water, so, like, half the stuff is supposed to be, like, floating in 3D. It doesn't look good. It's very... It leads itself to cheesy, to being laughed at. For sure.
Yeah, this was... It was gimmicky, basically, is the best way to look at it. And, you know, it's like, again, it's a fun concept. You know, what would happen if a killer shark was loose in the lagoon of a, you know, amusement park? Because, you know, you have the scene where all the people get trapped, where none of those people died. You know, we were kind of hoping for something to go wrong there. But, yeah, I mean, you have the dolphins and you have the whole thing. I mean, it was a little in the theater. The first kill with the guy the guy who shuts the gate. When you see that kind of makes you jump a little bit, because that's more the gorier, you know, after corpses, I guess, of the series. But
for sure,
what you guys now
that does stand out. Yeah, you're right.
And his girlfriend is like my favorite side character of the whole movie, because they're at the bar when she's like, "He better not be with that girl selling T-shirts at the store." And then he obviously doesn't make it home at night, so she goes and throws it at Michael Brody's, all his stuff, and then he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna search the lagoon. He may be dead." And she's like, "Well, I don't want him to be dead."
Yeah, it was quite the leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the weird thing that definitely should be discussed, is the fact that the Brody characters were shoehorned into this at the studio's request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we get to the next movie, they refer to that as the third part of the trilogy. I mean, this is not really canon, I think, in terms of I don't know what we call it, the Jawsiverse, the Brodyverse. I don't know how we want to term it these days. But yeah, it's kind of like...
Yeah, Sean is like a cop in the next one, and Michael is, an oceanographer or something?
Yeah, studying friggin'
doesn't
snails
really
or whatever.
Connect to their careers as amusement park workers or whatever they do in this movie.
Well, Michael says that Sean is so scared of water that he went to school in Colorado, which makes him a cowboy.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, but then in
and he wears cowboy boots.
Yeah, that's how you know he's a cowboy. And I'm pretty sure he has a cowboy hat at one point. But in the next movie, he's moved back to New England and gets in the wall. Yeah. They could have named this anything else, and I think it probably would have been a better movie. Because it wouldn't be part of this. It would stand on its own. With its own characters.
You could put all 4 movies up and play that song from like Sesame Street. Which one of these doesn't belong? Which one of these is not the same?
Which one of these things is not like the other?
Yeah, not like the others. Yeah.
I think my favorite piece of trivia within this movie itself is the fact that this is by definition the largest shark of the 4 films, because they have to justify how it can swallow the guy whole at the end of it. And like for its jaw, for the diameter of its jaw, whatever, to accommodate that, the shark had to be like 35 feet long, which is absolutely absurd. So it is the largest shark, and it is by definition the least realistic of all the Jaws films, including the one where the shark holds a grudge against this.
I mean, you have that scene where they're in the underwater restaurant and the shark goes by. And
it is like, it's a fucking dinosaur. This is a megalodon, this shark.
And then when they're that final scene, though, when they're in that is the worst 3D of the whole movie. You see the shark coming towards it, and all of a sudden the shark stops, and glass comes flying at you.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, he just guns it. Well, not guns it. It's implied gunning, but you can't make it work.
It's not the shark isn't moving, but the image is moving.
Yes. Shark goes kamikaze.
Right. Shark is just sort of gliding.
Scott, do you have any other thoughts on this movie?
No, just I think it might have been better if they didn't. I didn't know they had to shoehorn the Brodies in, but it might have been better if it just stood on its own. But you wouldn't have people go see it if it was called, Shark World or Sea World when sharks attack or something. So,
yeah. Question: what do you think is the more disappointing thing in this movie? That this is Lou Gossett Jr.'s first role after winning an Oscar for An Officer and Gentleman, or the fact that Dennis Quaid had to deal with this by being high off his ass on cocaine the entire time. Because apparently that's an actual thing he admitted to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. At the risk of suggesting Mr. Quaid was making excuses for himself, it doesn't sound like that unique of an experience for 80s Hollywood for him to be jacked out of his mind on coke. So I guess Lou Gossett Jr. got the worst deal there, coming off of a big Oscar boost, and this is what he finds himself doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what his follow-up was to this. Was it The Principal or something like that? No, that was 87. He does do Enemy Mine and Iron Eagle after this, so.
I think they're both 86, so he's a little ways.
Yeah, so, I think he recovers. But, yeah, it was, this is something, this movie. It's not a movie I would recommend to people. Obviously, but maybe if you just want to do one of those, like I said, Mystery Science Theater type nights with your friends and just watch a bad movie and just try to make each other laugh, go for it.
And the characters are very broad. They're sort of clownish. I mean, the wildlife, sea life photographer dude, and even Louis Gossett Jr.'s character is sort of goofy. And I think that sort of works better than just the annoying teenagers in the second movie. But I mean, these are not fleshed out, well-realized characters by any means.
Yeah, and you have a shark that goes in a pipe to look for you.
Right.
I mean, something similar happens in The Revenge, but that is just ridiculousness. I mean,
yeah. That whole underwater facility is a very interesting detail they've had to.
It is.
I guess to add tension, to have more characters underwater, but without you can see your faces. They don't have to be scuba gear and such.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you could do with people on the surface, I guess, and you had to start attacking them underneath. And and the fact though that it's dark. Because the water's darker, which is not something we'll run into in the next movie, which just happens to be Jaws: The Revenge, which is like we said, is considered the third movie in the Jaws trilogy from 1987. The
Brodyverse.
The Brodyverse, yes. They return to Amity.
Jaws cinematic universe.
Yes. So the storyline returns to Amity Island, but ignores all the plot elements of Jaws 3D. No mention is made to Michael's girlfriend in the previous movie, Catherine Morgan, or his career change from an engineer at SeaWorld to a marine biologist. In fact, one of the press releases for Jaws Revenge omits Jaws 3D entirely, calling it the third film of the remarkable Jaws trilogy. By the start of the film, Martin Brody had died of a heart attack, although his wife, Elaine Brody, claims that he had died through fear of the shark. Her youngest son, Sean, is now working as the police deputy in Amity and is engaged to be married, and it's Christmas time, and is dispatched to clear a log from a buoy. As he does so, he is attacked and killed by a shark. Ellen Brody becomes convinced that a shark is deliberately victimizing her family for the deaths of the first two sharks. Michael, played by Lance Guest in this movie, a.k.a. The Last Starfighter, awesome movie from the 80s, convinces her to spend time with the family in the Bahamas. However, as his job involves a lot of time in and on the sea, Ellen fears that he will be the shark's next victim. When her granddaughter, Thea, narrowly avoids being attacked by a shark, Ellen takes the boat in order to kill her family's alleged stalker. Hoagie, Michael, and his friend Jake find Ellen and proceed to electrocute the shark, driving it out of the water and impaling it on the prow of Ellen's boat. So,
which causes it to explode.
So we're gonna save the guy chomping at the bit for the end to give him. We're gonna ramp up to him. So we're gonna start with Scott. Scott, what are your thoughts on Jaws of Revenge to start off with?
I have it as Jaws 4. Can it get any worse? So, the shark set a trap to kill Sean. Is that what I'm supposed to believe?
The sharks are what?
The shark set a trap to kill Sean Brody. Is that what we're supposed to
believe?
Yes,
we're led to believe that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I was like, we're starting off hot here.
We're going right off the rails. That's right.
And I have, like, I said heart attack killed Papa Brody. I wasn't caring about names in this one. I did have that Michael Brody look like Jared Leto, so that was like kind of creeping me out a little bit because I think he's a creep. But
I can see that.
Yeah.
And the shark got faker, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast. With each one, it looks so fake. Somehow it looks faker in this one than it did in the 3D one. And Hoagie, who is Michael Caine, looks like he'd rather be anywhere else in every scene that he's in. I read a quote that he said he's never seen this scene, but he's seen the house that the movie built. So,
wait. I also wanted to use that quote. You're forgetting the last part. I've seen the house that the house is built, and it's terrific.
That's awesome.
That's such a diplomatic thing to say.
Yeah.
And you left out, Andy, that somehow the mom has a psychic connection with the
You gotta build this stuff up.
Yeah.
What the shit? And she somehow sees scenes that she was never part of, like with Brody killing the shark at the end of the first one. It's like she wasn't there. She was making sure Sean and Michael didn't get in the water. I was picking up my phone like every 30 seconds. It felt like I was just like looking at random things. It was like, can this time ever end? And
it's only 90 minutes.
It was a long 90 minutes. Like I took a phone call in the middle of it. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm watching Jaws of Revenge," and she said, "Why?" And I told her what I was doing.
Because Annie made me do it.
Yeah.
What's a podcast? Did she ask that?
No, she knew, thankfully. But I told Andy today, I was like, I almost messaged you. I was like, why do you hate me so much? Watching this movie, it was bad. It was real bad. It was up there with one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
All right, Eric.
And I have a couple things for the end, which we'll talk about when we get to that.
Eric, what are your thoughts on Jaws of Revenge going into it?
Well, amazingly, this is the last movie of a successful movie franchise. All these movies somehow still made money. This movie was profitable for Universal Pictures.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess this is the best thing they come up with. It's like here's the thing, like I don't have a problem with Laura Gray, who plays Miss Brody. Obviously, she was in the other movies. She's obviously well connected in Universal through her husband. He was a president.
Yes, that's right.
Not the president. Yes.
Who just passed away actually last year.
He did. We talked about him on
Suckcast, as you call it.
Dearly departed. Yeah, Suckcast.
Yeah. So maybe some slight nepotism, but she's fine. She was fine in those first two movies. I was funny to learn that she had come back from retirement. She was actually retired at this point when they asked her to do this movie. The last thing she did was a cameo in 1941, the Spielberg movie.
Wow.
So this is a long gap of like 8 years.
Very underrated movie, 1941, by the way.
I've still never seen it. I have I got a VHS copy from a bunch of VHSs because I still like VHSs a while back. So I will probably watch it eventually. But yeah, this story's off the rails. I do like the setting. I do like the Bahamas setting. That is something different, for sure. But also the psychic stuff. That's just.
Yeah, well, I think the clear water is a plus and a minus at the same time because it kind of gives you some elements that you didn't see in the first three. But yeah, and even make mention like sharks don't like warm water. Well, great whites at least because there are reef sharks and stuff in the Caribbean. But that's something. So Tim, here's your moment that we've been building up to forever. Where you get to go on as much as you like about Jaws Revenge.
As if I haven't already.
I know, if you haven't already, but have at it, my friend.
Okay, so this film has the reputation as being infamously one of the all-time bad movies of all time. And I think that was probably deserved, well-earned in 1987. I don't know if it really still holds up or lives down to its reputation today in light of much worse movies that exist. But I do think it is a really fun, again, bad movie watch. Like, have yourself a power hour before doing this, throw it on, and just go to town. Especially doing like a double feature of Jaws 3D and this back-to-back. I mean, my God. Here's the thing. I think that there is something more admirable in a sincere failure, which this absolutely is. It is a failure on every level. It's not a good film, and I will not defend it on that basis, but it is so sincere and yet so bad that the unintentional comedy kind of makes it worthwhile for me. And you compare this to something like, again, the way they do a lot of shark movies now, like your Sharknado and even The Meg, where it's very winking, very ironic, right? It's You can't say it's bad because it's like, well, it's supposed to be bad. And you're like, yeah, but in a way that's not as fun. You know what I mean? Like, this is before Hollywood had, like, discovered irony.
Yes.
So this is the end result. This is what we end up with. And, man, just how the mighty have fallen. Comparing this to the original, we're now, some 10, 12 years removed, and holy shit. We have sharks that hold grudges, sharks that actually roar.
Yes, that's another thing.
Dive out of the water and sort of fly, it appears, which again we're talking about realistic depictions of shark behavior. They explode when they're stabbed with a boat, in some versions actually. So there's actually different endings to this movie depending on whether you're watching the theatrical versus international release, and I'm not even sure like which is which.
I believe I read that all the international releases are pretty much been released as like for DVD and streaming.
Yeah, and I know I've seen both, but one has the boat ramming the shark, and it like explodes, and another one is less
where it pierces the shark and the bow rips off and the shark is plummeting,
and it just kind of sinks. Yeah.
And Jake survives.
Yes,
Marvin Peoples.
Yeah, he gets. It looks like taken down by the shark, and you're left to think, well, he must have gotten devoured, But again, depending on which version you're watching, they find him still alive, gravely wounded, probably succumbed to his injuries. But it leaves us on that hopeful note. Hoagie, what's his name?
Hoagie.
Hoagie.
His name is Hoagie Newcomb.
That's a name.
Gets attacked in the helicopter. And
it was a plane. One thing we didn't talk about, sorry, Tim, we didn't interrupt, but we didn't mention the helicopter getting taken down in Jaws 2, where he attacks the buoys, I guess, that keep the helicopter afloat, and, the blades go flying off. So this is the second aerial vehicle to be attacked by a shark in this franchise, which is Hoagie's seaplane. I love when Michael Caine is that what I think it is down there? And he lands and he's like, all right, well, I'm going to come over. Oh shit!
There's a fucking shark in Bahamas. What's going on?
Bloody hell! The breath on that thing.
Maybe that was a tribute to Jaws too. I never thought of it that way. The whole. Anyway, the epic romance, of course, between Hoagie and Mrs. Brody, now widow.
And that's a weird subplot in the movie too. Like Michael's pissed off that his mom's getting some strange.
How Ellen Brody got her groove back here, man.
And he spends half the time pissed off. It's like, dude, Dad's dead. Relax.
It seems like he's been dead for some time. I mean, for her to still be, holding the candle is, come on. Let her live her life.
For sure. It's nice to see Michael Caine have an age-appropriate love interest for once.
This is true. Yeah, it is.
This is around the same time as Blame It on Rio.
Oh, God.
Which is 10 times worse than My Father the Hero. If you've ever seen it.
Michael Caine in an interview, I don't know if it was a Tonight Show or something, they said, well, how do you pick your roles? Well, I tell you, I read the script, but I only read the first page and the last page. If my character is on both, then I do the movie.
Wow. Okay. He did the movie.
He did the movie.
On the first page. I can't imagine.
He did the movie and couldn't make it to the States to receive his Academy Award for Helen and Her Sisters. That's a key detail.
He got called back for reshoots, right? Because of this.
Yes.
Supposed to be done, but God. Now, fun fact, the novelization of Jaws the Revenge, I guess it found this premise of a shark holding a grudge against a family and following them from Amity to the Bahamas a little bit too much. So it tried to justify this by implying that apparently this is the result of a now work with me, voodoo curse.
Oh, Jesus.
So someone who had been wronged by the Brody family in some way or something cursed them and was using the shark as the instrument of their revenge. Yeah. Hence Jaws the Revenge. So what a shame that didn't make its way into the movie, right?
Yeah, this isn't quite. If that had been,
it would have been Weekend at Bernie
too. The movie. That's exactly what I was leading to. I was exactly a much better film, a better sequel. I will stand by that.
More believable, also.
Yeah.
God, what else? I do think the opening scene with Sean getting attacked, almost is sort of tense and effective. He gets his arm ripped off right away, and it happens so quick that you're sort of oh, holy shit. And then the way he gets taken down in the boat, it's the sort of thing that you kind of wanted more of in these movies, these types of really brutal kills. I mean, we're talking a killer shark franchise, for God's sake. And we didn't get a whole lot of that sort of savagery throughout the series. So I sort of appreciated that. And then it just sort of plummets from there. God, Ellen Brody as the hero of the film is It's an interesting choice. You're obviously not getting Roy Scheider back after he's fulfilled his contractual obligation. We kill him off screen, but we give her psychic powers. Or maybe it's not so much psychic powers. She could be, maybe she's being contacted by him from beyond somehow. And he's imparting, these memories and these visions. Not made clear. It's it's like a Christopher Nolan movie. It's very ambiguous deliberately, I'm sure. That's how it is. But no, Jaws: The Revenge is the Superman 4, the quest for peace of this franchise. But it is a fun bad movie watch. Again, it's a sincere, earnest failure in the way that the original film was a sincere, earnest success and masterpiece. This is just such the antithesis, just in the opposite direction. It's unreal, but is definitely worth seeing. So do check it out whenever you're down for a bad movie watch.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. If I'm flipping through the channels and I would see Jaws: The Revenge or Jaws 3, I'm going for the Revenge.
Oh, you gotta put it on.
It's higher on my list. So, any other thoughts on this movie, Eric?
Yeah. Can we all take consensus? Is this the worst Christmas movie ever?
It is a Christmas movie.
It is.
I'm going to start putting it on my list of Christmas movies.
Yeah, get it in the rotation.
The one thing I have to add is I think that Hoagie is a drug smuggler.
I think that's in the novelization, dude. Yeah. I think it is.
Because he seemed real shady when it was like, what do you need this plane for? And
yeah. No, I think that really is a thing. And it might have been cut out, I don't know, of the film. God, we got to get the extended cut.
Yeah.
90 minutes of this is not enough.
Maybe he's one of those lovable drug smugglers. Like, it's just weed.
But he's a nice drug smuggler, yeah.
Yeah.
If I go any faster, this thing will turn into a flying Cuisinart and we'll be all diced into oblivion. All right, so we're kind of like concluding the whole franchise. So let's kind of talk about a couple of things on the whole. Which shark? Let's kind of rank the shark deaths, though. The shark kills. Mm-hmm. I mean, I kind of like the one in 3D though. I kind of like it's kind of one of the more ridiculous ones, but the ingenuity.
You're talking about how they kill the shark.
How they kill the shark. How the shark is brought to his demise at the end of the movie. The first one is great. But in terms of ingenuity, I gotta go Jaws 3D, obviously, and then the other two are pretty ridiculous, because they're kind of a little weird, if you know what I mean. What do you guys think in terms of the shark kills?
Can't really top that first one. Points for ingenuity in that third one, though. The guy getting swallowed whole, and he's just like. Still holding
the grenade or whatever that thing is.
Still with the grenade, and you pull the pin. It's that's fun.
It's something.
I'm gonna go with 2 because when they're dragging the ocean at the beginning of the movie, and they pick up the electrical line, and they say that they're going to. If they would have done anything else with it, they would have cut power to the whole island.
Yeah.
Cut power to the whole island, so that's why I think it's the best.
That's the implication.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing.
You gotta believe there's enough juice in there to take out that shark.
Exactly. So
that is a great setup. Yeah, I'll give you that. They really paid that off nicely. You're right.
Yeah.
And what are some of your favorite human kills throughout the whole franchise? I kind of like the girl on the banana boat getting it. In Jaws: The Revenge.
In The Revenge? Yeah. Banana boat kills is not... I mean, Jaws: The Revenge has kind of not bad kills. Yeah. But it's so the rest of the movie. Yeah, I mean, they're few, but I mean, none of them really have that many, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say the kid getting killed in the first one. That set the tone for the movie. I mean, I know we had the girl dying, but when you're killing like an 8-year-old, you're like, damn, no one is really off limits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which Steven Spielberg says led to someone running out of the theater and throwing up in the hallway at the premiere.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I liken Jaws to probably like people who probably saw The Exorcist a couple of years earlier. Like, this is something you don't normally see in a theater.
Right. It's doing things that movies aren't supposed to do. It's for that time period.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I love Quint's death. Just getting chomped down on like that. Ugh. Yeah, that's kind of the most visceral sort of death. I mean, the mechanical shark being what it is, it's sort of, a little bit hokey today, but man, it's
and you kind of didn't expect the way he would act. I mean, I know it's terrifying, and everybody would be probably screaming in that in that situation, but this guy is tough as nails. Can take down anything, not afraid of anything, and then he's like screaming, like I don't know, just it seems a little out of character. Like I thought he would be more
stoic
in his death. Yeah, more like, all right, I accepting my fate. I'm gonna try to take your ass out with me, kind of thing.
Yeah. It almost, and here's a dumb fan theory I'm going to throw out there. It's not really even my theory. It's just something I've thought about on rewatches of that first Jaws over the years. Part of me almost thinks he's bullshitting telling the story of the USS Indianapolis. Like, it's a thing that happened, but he was so not there for that. He's just making shit up to sound like more of a badass.
Yeah, it was a well documented story too at that time, because if anybody doesn't know really what that story is, that was the ship that delivered the A-bomb that got dropped on Hiroshima. So, and it was not on. It was not on any. There was no plans, nothing. No, they didn't use the radio, anything. It was secret.
I don't think that's the intended reading of that scene at all. Yeah. There's just enough, maybe reasonable doubt in my mind to if you want to turn him into that kind of character, you could.
Yeah.
So you basically turned him into Nick Nolte's character in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, there you go.
Where he's full of shit. Yes.
Totally full of shit on every level.
All right, so Jaws, of course, first blockbuster, legacy of killer shark movies. Let's kind of go through some of the ones that have come since, because I don't know if we're ever going to go back to the Jaws franchise. I don't know if they'll ever get revitalized. Maybe if they do, maybe we find Thea Brody as the lead growing up now. I don't know where they can go with it.
Here's a way it gets remade. When Steven Spielberg dies, I think that's the only reason.
Yeah,
could be.
It's not going to be happen during his lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, you keep hearing those rumors though that they're going to do a remake.
Yeah. So some of the movies that come out now, Deep Blue Sea. I am actually a fan of that movie. I don't know if I've really sat through any of the. I don't know if there's one or two sequels to it, but I kind of enjoy the first one, because that's where there's a lot of good kills. Like it doesn't hold back in that movie, especially the Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Which kind of comes all of a sudden, and the almost kills of LL Cool J throughout the entire movie.
Right.
An underrated kill in that movie is Michael Rappaport, where the shark just comes and just devours him whole.
Except for his foot.
Yeah, that always terrified me. Like the first time I saw it at like 9 or 10 years old. But the Samuel Jackson one is famous because of the Chappelle skit with him saying the fucking shark ate me. Not as good, but Deep Blue Sea, which actually has a sequel coming out this summer.
Oh,
that I saw on Twitter randomly, because now I'm getting all these shark movie promotional ads.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Did you know, actually, here's a little trivia. The way they kill off the 3 sharks is the way the sharks are killed in the first 3 Jaws movies.
In Deep Blue Sea?
Yes.
I never thought about that.
No.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. The first one is blown up, by an explosion. The second one gets electrocuted.
electrocuted.
And the third one is they attach it to the battery and they shock it or whatever with the fence or something like that when it's trying to get through the fence or something, and it blows up. Yeah.
Oh man,
that was kind of like a nod
That's
to
sweet.
Jaws. And then
Deep Blue Sea is fun because it leans in such a sci-fi direction. Like it very much knows what it is. It's not.
and there's
It's
some
like,
fucked
okay,
up kills in that movie though. The
Yeah,
girl's
yeah.
like, I don't want to
Racist.
die, and then the shark lifts her out of the water and then yanks her down.
Uh-huh.
And Stellan Skarsgård, I guess he's on like a gurney or whatever and trying to get airlifted out of there. And the shark's like, nope, that ain't happening. Any of you guys seen Open Water or any of those movies? I've actually never seen them.
No, I have not.
Yeah, I saw the first Open Water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I know.
Not really for me. It's almost too found footage. Like it's not really a found footage film, but it kind of feels that way. And I just can't with any found footage movie. It just there's something about that takes me out of it. So
All right. And then the same with The Reef. Have any of you guys seen that one? It's from 2010.
no.
No.
All right. It's a great white shark hunts the crew of a capsized sailboat along the Great Barrier Reef. Interesting.
Have you seen it?
No, I have not actually. That's why
Yeah,
I read the synopsis. So, but I have seen The Shallows with Blake Lively.
Yeah, The Shallows I can fuck with.
I love that movie actually. I
like that.
I love the storytelling, and the shark is such a dick, so to speak. I mean, obviously, the way the heroine gets through it is a really cool finish to the story. Mm-hmm. But there's actually one part of that movie where you root for the shark. And it's when, she's trapped on a rock. And,
the douchebag.
Yeah, there's a drunk guy on the beach, and she's trying to catch him for help. And he just proceeds to try to steal her shit. But gets a little greedy and goes after her surfboard that's floating in the water.
Yeah,
and
he gets it.
That kind of not to spoil it too much, even though the movie did come out a few years ago. But yeah, it's a very good, some good kills in that movie. But yeah, the shark is such an asshole in that. And then of course,
really effective like survival type movie.
Yes, kind of like 127 Hours esque, I guess. That's that James Franco.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched like a lot of other shark movies. Like at Jaws, I've seen some of the other sea related movies that happen there, like Orca the Killer Whale.
Oh God, I remember when that came out.
The original Piranha, the Joe Dante film.
Yep,
it's another movie that scared me as a kid. And then they had that Jaws 3D or 3DD, whatever. It's in like Lake Havasu or something. Those are crazy. Especially
was one of the Piranha movies a 3D gimmick?
Yeah, the remakes.
It was 3D and then 3DD. Yeah.
Yeah. Double D. Wow.
And then we also had The Meg, which I'm actually watching at the moment, which was good actually. You have to go in with low expectations.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those that it almost. See, that's where it gets into the slightly annoying territory for me, where it's sort of couching some of its flaws in, well, it's just a dumb shark movie. You're not supposed to take it serious, and it's like it is, but still, I still go back to something like The Shallows, which is very earnest, very sincere, like a Jaws one.
Yeah.
And I just think that is more impressive if you can do that effectively than doing the ironic shark movie.
Yeah.
TM.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the epitome of bad shark movies is the Sharknado franchise on the Sci-Fi Channel, which I've seen. I think I watched like the first few, and then I kind of just said, I can't waste any more of my life watching these movies, as bad and campy as they are.
I've never felt the need. Even when they added wrestler cameos to this series.
Yeah, one was basically an advertisement for Universal. Also, go ahead, Tim.
I don't know. With Sharknado, I think the idea that a Sharknado film series exists is sort of more entertaining than the reality of any of the individual films, probably. I mean, I know they have their fans, and it's a very niche audience they're aimed at. I get it, but I'm not super going out of my way to watch all those.
Yeah. I will give credit to Ian Ziering for making the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, good on him.
By the fact that the fifth movie came out, he's actually managed to get paid $500,000.
Wow, good for him.
For a TV movie, fifth in a series.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That means somebody said, we have to throw more money at him. Ian Ziering might not come back.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
He's kind of the face of that franchise.
He is.
Because he just goes with it. The weirdness.
All right. So, any final thoughts on Jaws, the franchise, or any subsequent shark movies? Kind of go around the horn. Scott, what are your kind of final thoughts on all this stuff?
Final thoughts. Jaws by itself was amazing. It kicked off, the summer blockbuster, which I don't know about you guys, but every year when January 1st, first week of January comes out, I just roll through the releases to see what to get excited for, the Marvel tentpoles or, a new Men in Black movie, because I'm a sucker for those movies. But Jaws was the one that kicked it off, and just like a couple other movies, they went to the well too many times with it, but it did lead to some interesting movies that came out of it, like we were talking about with like the Deep Blue Sea, the Sharknado, and everything. Which, when you think of the ocean, you think, oh, you don't want to get attacked by Jaws. So
you don't want to get attacked by Jaws. Be careful. Don't go in the water.
Yep.
All right, Eric. What are your final thoughts on what we discussed tonight?
That first movie is amazing. It's I guess. That it's an amazing movie from a filmmaker who went on to make many more amazing movies. So some people wouldn't even consider this his top 5. I strongly think it is. I'm not gonna do a listing right now, but I certainly think it's his top 5 best. Mm-hmm. And the sequels were just, they did what they could and make it as interesting as they could. I think it's interesting that the sequels came out at a point when the horror genre certainly get more speed, more traction. Like there's a lot more horror films certainly in the 70s, the late 70s, and certainly in the 80s when we're certainly large in the slasher genre for sure. Mm-hmm. Which is probably the best time to put this to bed in 87 when we're at it's Gulf.
Yes.
Glutz. Sorry, Glutz.
All right, Tim. What are your final thoughts after finally getting to have a focused discussion on Jaws of Revenge?
I know. How about it? One of my dreams fulfilled. Dreams come true.
Knock that off that bucket list.
Oh, man. Oh, God. So you hear the term, this is sort of a jumping off point from what Eric was saying, got me thinking on this track. You hear the term today, elevated horror, mm-hmm. and I think what it means
not
is...
a real phase.
A horror movie that's actually good, which is like such a pretentious sort of term. I feel like there's nothing about the horror genre inherently that says it always has to be shit, and on the rare occasion that it's good, we have to call it elevated. Like, fuck you. But you look at that first Jaws movie and you kind of see what people are talking about if they are to use that term. Everything about it really is elevated. The writing, the acting, certainly the cinematography, the drama, just the larger than life scope, and how it all still somehow feels believable despite its premise. You can suspend your disbelief and go along with it pretty easily, I think. And that is to say nothing of the fact that it is directed by arguably the greatest American filmmaker of all time, perhaps. Mm-hmm. So it has a reputation for greatness, and it is one of the great films that I would consider one of my favorite movies. And then you have 3 other films in its lineage that don't really compare, but have their own individual merits and deficiencies. So, yeah, I kind of think that everyone should see the original Jaws. I don't know that everyone should see Jaws the Revenge, but it is as bad as that first one is good. So if that's your thing, go for it. And the 2 in the middle, your mileage may vary. If you find that you're a fan of the franchise or you like these types of movies, then have yourself a Jaws marathon, man.
Yeah, if you're a Dennis Quaid completist, go see that.
Yeah, maybe you're a Dennis Quaid completist, exactly.
So, all right. My final thoughts are: yes, Jaws, one of my favorite movies of all time. Like I said, like you guys have mentioned, it kicked off Spielberg becoming what we know today as Steven Spielberg. If this had not been a success, Lord knows what could have happened with that man's career and what we could have got, what we would have missed out on. Like you said, like mentioned earlier, that they would never remake it while the man's still alive. The amazing power he has, like at Universal Studios, which is something we didn't really talk about. We said we were, but at Universal Studios they have the E.T. attraction, which is extremely dated and but they will never ever tear it down because of Steven Spielberg, his love for that franchise and love for that ride. Before we go, though, we could quickly talk about the ride. I was on it. I've been on it a few times. It was a tremendous amount of fun. If you haven't been on it, I suggest going on YouTube, watching the ride-alongs. It does, follow a little thing where you kind of go on a tour and then you see a boat that sinks. The shark does roar on the ride to add some sound effects when you go into like a boathouse kind of thing. And at the end, the shark does die via electrocution and gets burned up on the side, and you get engulfed in a cloud of steam, which is a pretty amazing effect. So if you never got a chance to go on, I suggest you go on YouTube and check that out. So
yeah, for sure.
So that's going to bring a close to...
I enjoyed it.
Go ahead.
1996. I'll tell you, I enjoyed it in 1996. I guess it was worth the line. Everything had, of course, a long line. We had no cut the line privileges or anything.
Yes, there were no fast passes or land, whatever Universal does these days. And now, thanks to, now that's gone in place of, I believe it's Diagon Alley, I think is what they put there now, of the 2 Harry Potter lands. So I think there's a little tribute, though, somewhere to it. I remember you used to be able to walk up to the shark that's hanging and take a picture with it and kind of stick your head in it kind of thing. It was modeled after Amity, so you had like a little fishing village basically motif as you walk through. It was kind of amazing theming. But
Universal was my favorite of the Orlando parks, actually. That trip the one trip that I took there in '96, where you had Magic Kingdom, MGM, Epcot. Mind you, I was like 12 years old. But Universal was like, that was kind of the consensus, far and away was the coolest.
Yeah, I have a feeling my kids are going to love that more when we finally get there next year. They love Disney like I do, but Universal is a little more thrills. They're, by the time we go 19 and 14, so I think they're going to be, and like my daughter's a big Harry Potter fan. We're also going to hit Star Wars, so yeah, really looking forward to it. But that's going to bring a close to the first episode of Blockbuster Rewind. Before we say goodnight, though, let's kind of go around and see what everybody may be up to on other shows to direct people at, social medias you might want to direct people to follow you on. Let's start with our guest. Tim, do you have any shows out there that you'd like to promote and point people towards?
I would just say check out the sister feed, Place to Be Nation Wrestling, where I do 2 shows. One is called PTB NXT with Jennifer Smith and Jacob Williams, going through the network era of NXT. So starting at January in 2014, and trucking right along through the chronology. We're in the month of March, getting into April as of our last recording. So check that out if you're an NXT fan. Also, if you're a WCW fan, we have Talkin' WCW. Myself, Jennifer, and Greg Phillips. That is one wrestler or theme or concept or match type per show. And on our most recent, actually probably upcoming episode, I would say, don't know if that'll have dropped by the time you're hearing this, we'll be talking Goldberg. So looking at 3 Goldberg matches that we will choose and discuss. Yeah, got to get around to the man, finally.
Yes.
With Jennifer Smith also on her feed called The Jenny Position. So check out The Jenny Position. It is its dedicated podcast feed. I do the aforementioned The Journey Through Infinity and Talkin' Pop, where Jenny and I most recently interviewed guest Calvin Crowell, who has had a wild life and was an open book, and we tried to make the most of that, but wow, it was sort of all over the place, but it had to be based on his experiences. And he's a dear friend, and I feel like we know him a lot better now, and I kind of want to talk to him again already because he had so many great stories.
Calvin is quite the character. Where are you guys up to with The Journey Through Infinity?
So The Journey Through Infinity, your most recent episode is going to be Thor, the Thor, the Dark World. Which, spoiler, we were not all huge fans of. But we have recorded our next episode, which in the MCU is going to be Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So you can look for that on the next installment of The Journey Through Infinity. Look for that on the Jenny Position, coming soon.
All right. Which is, Thor the Dark World is on the bottom of most people's list, and Winter Soldier is near the top of most people's list. So quite the 180, so to speak.
It's really a contrast, those 2 episodes, I can tell you. And you can, if you want, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Psych68, CYKE68.
Awesome. Scott, what do you have to point people towards in terms of podcasts, social medias, etc.?
I was just on the Great Debate, as we spoke earlier this week. Great Debate 11 dropped on Monday. You guys can check that out. Subscribe to the Pop Feed, Place to Be Wrestling, North-South Connection, Jenny Position, all those. They're great feeds. They get me through the days at work. And when I'm walking my dog, I can be... you can follow me at Twitter at Scott, SCOTT __ Shifflett, SHIFFLETT. And thanks for listening.
All right. Eric, do you have any social medias or other podcasts to direct people towards?
No podcast that I'm associated with other than this fine show we're watching tonight. So just check out all the great shows on all the various feeds on the Place to Be Nation feed. I'm certainly listening a lot more to the Vintage Vaults as they're ending 1990. That's a period I'm not too familiar with. When I wasn't a fan at that time, and certainly the Jane Position. I very much enjoy the Brother Sister Rewatch podcast as they're covering the entire run of The Office. That's always a nice Monday pick me up. If anyone needs it. So yeah.
All right.
And of course, all the great podcasts on the Place to Be Pop Feed. So many I can't even name.
Yes, there are a lot of shows here. Hopefully, with more shows coming soon, we're trying to get like we've spoken about past. We're in a bit of a transition state on the feed, but we're working on it and getting new voices on here, like you've heard tonight, and some old voices like you also heard tonight. As for me, like Scott said, check out the latest episode of The Great Debate, number 11. That was with him and Sean Kidd and Matt Souza. Speaking of Matt Souza, don't forget to check out A Piece of the Action, his brand new on his second episode. It is a action movie watch podcast. Him and Sean Kidd, they watch Demolition Man, which is one of my favorite action movies of all time. Over on the wrestling feed, check me out on Great Debate Wrestling. Just had an episode drop, and that was myself, Scott Criscolo, Logan Carlson, and the famous Grooney, James Grunberg. Also, check out, by the time you hear this, it will have been posted, the latest episode of Body Pressure Luck, which featured the 7-time champion going into the show, Ryan, when he went up against Mike Poulin and Grooney, and you have to tune in to see what happens. Whether we have an 8-time champion or we have a new, we would do that announcement. We would try to do Howard Finkel. If it does ever happen, and it could have happened, who knows? Check out Body Pressure Luck.
If it didn't happen on that episode, it's never going to happen.
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny anything that happened on that episode, as I am sworn to secrecy. Anyway, also check out here on the feed of PlayStation Pop. Other shows coming soon. The Year in Pop will be back in a few weeks. We're going to be covering the year 1983, as well as Pop Goes the Classics, the Disney series. That's myself, Chad, and Miranda, and we are going to be discussing Bambi in our chrono review, watch, whatever you want to call it. And also episodes of Laugh-In Theater. I try to do, every couple of weeks I try to get a new episode up, as well as some extra group watches. The latest one is Scary Movie, which is myself, Jennifer Smith, and Grooney. I find it kind of amazing that somebody can enjoy a parody movie without seeing the source material that is based on.
Not kidding.
It's fascinating to hear.
So I suggest you listen to that movie, because once Jenny and I learned that about Grooney, it goes off the rails.
It goes off the rails earlier than expected.
Well, it goes off the rails the moment I said, and also joining us, James Grunberg, aka Grooney.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we love Grooney. He is such a kind, good soul. That's just a big goofball. Also, did not see Usual Suspects, which kind of throws you off at the end of Scary Movie. So, yeah, a lot of revelations.
Can we hear you banging on your? Can we hear you banging on your table as that happens?
Jenny and I were just like, what are we doing? So, also, all right, so don't forget to check out all of our social media pages. Check out PlayStation.com. Subscribe to all the feeds. That is the PlayStation Pop feed, the PlayStation Wrestling feed, the Jenny Position, as well as the North-South Connection, and all kinds of great content here at PlayStation. So I want to thank my co-hosts, Scott Shifflett and Eric Eells, for joining me on tonight's show, as well as our very special guest on our maiden episode, the one, the only, Tim Capel. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, it was a fun-filled ride of hopes and dreams. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I love this concept, this Blockbuster Rewind, and keep them coming, dude. This is going to be a fun listen for me, I know.
Yes, I can't wait to talk to these guys, hopefully monthly.
Yeah.
We're going to aim for, and get to talk about a lot of great movies, and probably along the way, like we did tonight, some bad movies as well, which is keeps it interesting. So, for Scott Shifflett, Eric Eells, and Tim Capel, I am Andy Atherton. Thank you for joining us on Blockbuster Rewind, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Oh God.